I don't know why, but you were watching the Madness Comic Network. Are you mental?
It has begun!
Greetings and salutations. What better way to start off this new era? Ladies and gentlemen, I want to take this opportunity to welcome you to this new era of Freewheeling Friday or Fridays, depending on what you want to call it here in the world. This is part of the Madness Comic Network. I am your new and improved host, commissioner, president, CEO, boss, the one who calls the shots, however you want to go about it. My name is Ryan of And I Quote Channel, and I am so happy to be here. I'm happy to have this opportunity to come here and be a part of this network and share with you my love of pop culture and a guest and or guests who will be joining us throughout the weeks, months, and hopefully years that this program is going to be running for here in the near future, talking about our favorite things about pop culture, maybe some of the projects they have coming up. We have a lot of indie creators we're going to be talking with. Some of these faces you may have been introduced to before. Some of these will be new faces that we're going to be bringing to the forefront. But it's going to be a lot of fun. And if you have any questions for us, any topics relating to pop culture and movies, TV, comics, books, anime, whatever it is that fits your fancy, let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat. We're more than happy to take those as they come in. But please welcome. What better way to kick things off than with our first guest of this new era, Freewheeling Friday, on MCN, then the one and only, the best indie author in the world today. He is the Nature Boy. No, it's not Ric Flair. I'm sorry, but it is the leader of Ben Books. Bobby Nash is here with us. Hello, Bobby. Welcome back.
Hi.
It's great to see you. How are you?
It's good to see you too. I don't have the power, but I have the thunder, so we're close. The He-Man opening was awesome. I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, that brings back some memories for at least some of us, because unfortunately, He-Man was just a little before my time.
It was right at the end of where I was starting to become a teenager and all. I was just getting into the teen years, so it was just right at the cusp of me going cartoons or girls. It was right at yeah, it was right at the cusp of that. So yeah.
Wow, what a way to get personal. We've only been here less than 2 minutes, Bobby. This is impressive. I don't know this much personal information about you, but I appreciate it nonetheless. My goodness. And by the way, thank you to everybody who's already chiming in within the chat. Matthew Creek is a new member here. Madness Comic Network just commented. They're saying, welcome to the Madness, Bobby. And thanks again, Ryan, for being the host. You're welcome, Pops Van Zant. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And thank you for having both myself and Bobby Nash is here with us. So, hey, it makes it even better and sweeter, I guess. I don't know.
My first time on this network, so that's awesome.
First time for everything. Do they have sweet tea down there in Georgia? I don't know if they do or not. I do know they have it in North Carolina, where I used to live.
Got some right here.
There it is. There it is. In the words of our good friend Jeff Goldblum, well, there it is. Fantastic. So speaking of He-Man, what are some of your favorite things about He-Man and the Masters of the Universe? And does one of those things include the live-action adaptation with Dolph Lundgren?
The live-action one is good in the cheesy way. But I will tell you, one of my favorite of that movie, I have a friend who has a podcast, and we used to do watch along, kind of like what you guys do here. When we did Zorro.
Yeah.
And we did a watch along of Masters of the Universe.
And
we were all in the same room.
Oh my goodness.
And so there were 4 or 5 of us, and we were all in the same room. We all watched it together. Then we watched it again with the sound off and did the commentary. And so my memories of that movie are now tied to the fun I had doing that. And so now when I see that, I'm also taken back to the fun of just hanging out. Kind of like when I watch Zorro now, because we did the Zorro.
Zorro last year.
And it adds something. It adds a personal element to those movies, the memory of the tie-in. But I discovered He-Man, when it first aired with the cartoons, and I saw the toys, and I had 1 or 2 of the toys. My parents didn't buy a lot of action figures, but I think I had a He-Man and a Skeletor, and that was probably it. But I enjoyed the concept. I remember getting the storybooks,
Mm-hmm.
the little square
Oh,
storybooks. I remember
like the
getting those.
golden books, maybe golden.
Kind of, but they weren't hardbacks, but they
Oh, they
were
weren't hardbacks.
similar thing where
Sure.
it's like a short story, but there's all this beautiful painted
Ooh.
artwork
Yeah.
inside. And I remember getting some of those, and those were gorgeous. And the show was fun. Very, very simple, but very fun. And I enjoyed He-Man and all that. That was just
Don't forget about She-Ra now. Don't forget about She-Ra.
and at the time too, when they first came out, DC Comics was doing the comics, the Master Universe comics. And I remember it was like a 3-issue miniseries where Superman ends up on Eternia.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so it was Superman and He-Man. And
No way.
yeah, and Skeletor is fixing, setting things up so He-Man and He-Man and Superman have to battle it out. And it was fun. It's a lot of fun. If you can ever find those, it was fun. A little different than the cartoon, because I think they were going more off the toy, because the cartoon didn't really follow the stories that were in the toys, because the toys came before comics. Because back then, both He-Man and Skeletor had swords, and you had to put the swords together to have the power. And the cartoon never really didn't seem to do that. It was just like He-Man had the sword, and Skeletor wanted it. Whereas in the toys, they each had a sword, and if you had both characters, one of the swords had, like, you could clasp them together and they would stick together.
Oh my gosh.
And you can make a power sword. Yeah. So.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I hadn't thought of that stuff in years.
I know. Jeez.
I don't have a lot of He-Man stuff.
You should have more.
I did pick up the.
What was it?
I don't see them here, but they put out these big trades. I want to say it was
the trade paperbacks.
IDW. Yeah. Well, these hardcovers of like the artwork for the toys and the comic strips.
The artistry. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I have a He-Man and Battle Cat.
There you go.
Figure. They put them in a 2-pack like a year or so ago, and I can't see it from here, but somewhere in this
melee
nest behind me,
there is
the Hallmark Castle Grayskull ornament. It's about.
Oh, sure, yeah.
That is back here somewhere. That's how my office is in general. It's here somewhere.
We just don't know exactly where.
Yes. But believe it or not, this is the clean corner of my office.
That's the clean corner in the background? Okay.
Oh my God. From my point of view, there's stacks of books there, and
stacks of books
stacks
over
here, and stacks of books there. Yeah, it's
oh my goodness.
It's semi-controlled chaos.
Well, one thing's for sure, you're going to need a bigger boat. Which is another one of your biggest fandoms that you love so dearly, because I feel like you keep adding to it every couple of weeks and months. You add more and more Jaws memorabilia to, I think you're calling it your Jaws corner, or maybe the Jaws shrine. I don't know what you want to call it.
Yeah, there's a shelf in the far corner, and it's become this thing where, like, people just mail me stuff.
Oh, really?
And it's like, hey, I saw this Jaws thing. Here you go. So I'm getting all kinds of stuff, and it doesn't have to be Jaws. Sometimes it's just shark stuff. It's like, here, I saw these, and I know you like sharks. So it gets bigger and bigger, and I have the Jaws figures from when they did the Funko and Reaction.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Various things like that, little things I've picked up over the years. So it's fun, but I love that movie. That's just one of my favorite movies. And
so it's true then, what they say, there were no sequels. There's just Jaws.
That's right, just Jaws, yes.
There's not Jaws 2 or Jaws 3D, Jaws 4 The Revenge, or Jaws 19 from Max Spielberg, where Marty walks into that in 2015, and then he finds out that the shark still looks fake.
Well, it's funny. I saw a trailer on YouTube yesterday.
Oh, really?
I forget what it was called. Was it something Reef or The Reef or something? And it's this shark movie about these 4 ladies that are they're taking kayaks and they're out in the ocean.
Oh,
and they're attacked by a shark. But the main character, they keep cutting back in the trailer. Someone's telling the main character, I guess she was attacked. She had a shark encounter when she was a kid. But it's Richard Dreyfuss is playing the guy telling her, stay away from the sharks.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, something tells me it's like an underhanded spin-off, like
Kind of like
legacy sequel
they
to
did that
Jaws.
movie Piranha
Yeah, they did
3D,
Piranha 3D with
and
Christopher Lloyd. Yeah.
right, and well, in the opening scene of that movie, Richard Dreyfuss is in a little boat,
Oh, that's
and
right. I forgot about that.
he's playing Matt Hooper, the guy from Jaws, although they don't say that, but he's doing research, but he's singing the "Show Me the Way to Go Home," and then the piranhas kill him.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so that was kind of like their unofficial. That's how he died.
Like wink and nod
Yeah,
to
because
what would have happened if Jaws continued with Matt
yeah,
Hooper's character. Yeah.
right, because his character in the novel dies.
Oh, I didn't know that.
In the novel, when the shark
Spoiler.
attacks the cage
Mm-hmm.
in the novel, he dies.
Oh, I didn't know that.
The reason he survives the movie is and it's perfect for that movie. It was an accident. So much of that movie happens because stuff wasn't working right.
Yeah, Bruce the shark wasn't
So
working correctly according to Spielberg.
so the scene where the shark is attacking the cage and is spinning around, it's like caught up in the cage.
Yeah.
And in the film, you notice there's nobody in the cage.
Oh,
And that's
okay.
because because they filmed it with a midget guy, a dwarf guy. I'm sorry if that's not the political right,
little person, but yes.
little person. But they had also put like a smaller air tank on him, so it looked like he was this Matt Hooper size.
Right.
Well, the guy had a heart attack because he didn't have enough air, and he had a heart attack in the cage. So they take him out, and while there's nobody in the cage, the shark attacked the cage.
Oh my
god! And
gosh.
They got it on film, and so Spielberg's like, "Oh, I love this, but Hooper's not in the cage." So they rewrote it for Hooper to survive because they wanted to use the footage of the real shark attacking the cage.
I was not aware of that.
Yeah.
That is some fascinating stuff. By the way, Geekman Masters of the Thunder Nerds. Speaking of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, he says, "How's it going, y'all?" Well, we're doing well, man. Good to see you. Like Bobby Nash is here. He's an indie author. By the way, for those of you who are just joining us, this is the new and improved edition of FreeWheeling Friday, because I am sweeping the MCN completely clean, doing the thing, like nobody ever does before. And I am your host, Ryan Van Dyke, Co-Channel, doing a somewhat good imitation of the late great, by the way, Macho Man Randy Savage. For those of you who grew up watching wrestling as a youngling or as an adult, it doesn't matter when you were watching it. If you're watching it, it's great for those eras, respectively, of course. But I'm your host, Ryan Van Dyke, Co-Channel. Bobby Nash is an indie author. He's here with us. If you have any questions for him or both of us about pop culture, anything related to movies or TV or books, like we're talking about the novelization of Jaws, where apparently Hooper dies, and all this other stuff I didn't know about Jaws. Hello. Let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat. Do not forget to like and share this with all of your closest friends. And if you're watching us on a replay or live, we thank you so much for doing so. And yes, Bobby, you were stating something about the novelization, how things were changed on set with the little person in the shark cage, and Hooper ends up surviving the situation going on between him and the shark. I did not know that. That is some fascinating stuff. And little do we know that next year, I believe, in 2025, will be, if I'm not mistaken, the 50th anniversary of Jaws, the actual movie. So that's a big deal, which means Bobby is getting very much younger. Ryan is getting very much older. Brian K. Morris is asking himself, where is my TARDIS when I need one? So, I mean, Bobby, do you have any special plans for the 50th anniversary for yourself and Jaws?
I'm hoping that it comes back to a theater or something. I have seen it in the theater. I was an adult before I saw it in the theater.
Oh, there you go.
I was 4 when it came out.
4? Oh my gosh.
And my parents weren't big movie goers. I could count on one hand the movies I went to see with my parents.
Oh boy.
But so the first time I didn't actually see Jaws first. I saw Jaws 2 first.
Oh boy.
On cable. I had spent the night with a cousin over.
Oh, it was cable. Okay.
And they had cable, and we saw Jaws 2, which I loved it. As a kid, I thought, "Oh, this is cool. It's a big shark." And
yeah,
then
Roy Scheider.
Yeah, then later saw the first one, and I realized 2 is okay. 1 is
Compare
awesome.
1 is like a masterpiece, whereas 2,
Yeah.
3, and 4 never really happened.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, 3 is, oh. 4 is, and 4 is, ugh. But
It's funny you say that because I watched the first 3 and then I tried watching 4 and I got 10 minutes in and I got bored and I just couldn't take it anymore. This is terrible. But I actually enjoyed Jaws 3D to a degree because I mean I liked it a little bit more than Jaws 2. And the other thing was it was a bit of a continuation with, the Brody's kids, his
yeah, because
kids.
each one, because the Brodies there's
Like they
Brodies in
grow
all
up.
4 of them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they grow up, or the
yeah.
wife or the widow comes in, or whatever. And the other thing is that I liked about Jaws 3D, and probably someone out there in the chat may know about this as well. It was Leah Thompson's first movie.
Oh, okay.
So Leah Thompson, a very drop dead gorgeous, I might add, for the 80s. And I mean, she's still beautiful to this day. But if you look at her when she was first starting out, Bobby, I mean,
Yeah.
Leah Thompson, one of the most beautiful women of the 1980s. And if anyone disagrees with me, you're out of your mind. By the way, Matt says we call them munchkins. He says, hey, geek nerds, master of the thunder nerds. We are everywhere, like everywhere, and I mean seriously. Let's see. Pops goes on to say, I watched someone regurgitate when the head popped out of the boat in the first Jaws film.
I've seen this movie dozens of times. It still gets me every time. I'm still startled when
really?
Yeah. When
the head pops
out of the boat. Yes, I am still. It still startles me.
It's a good jump scare, one might say, right?
But yeah, it's such a well-made movie, but yeah, the stories for the later ones were just like with the second one. I didn't care if the kids got eaten.
We didn't care if those teens got eaten.
Yeah, because none of them were overly likable, so I didn't care. The third one, I cared about the Brody kids. But,
yeah, Dennis Quaid. Yeah,
yeah, but I think part of it was that the 3D effects were not great.
Well, they were terrible.
Well, they were for the time.
I mean, they may have been revolutionary for the time, but when you look at it now, it's like, oh, this is horrible.
Yeah, because the shark explodes and there's a couple of bones fly on it.
It's like,
or the shark's coming, but he doesn't, because it's 3D. He's not.
He comes slow. He comes very slow.
And then the story for the fourth one.
Oh my god!
This time, that's where we get that this time it's personal.
Yeah,
that joke about that.
In Jaws 19, they say this time it's really personal.
Yeah. But there's the fact that it's a shark looking for revenge gets a little weird. And then the fact that if you think a shark is after you, if you're convinced that there is a shark hunting you down, where is the last place you would move to? Somewhere, an island where you're on the ocean. Yes. Go to Montana and then go, I dare you to get me now, you little bastard.
maybe go to Iowa or Nebraska or somewhere where it's kind of like landlocked. I don't know.
Yeah. So sad. But yes, going down to where all the shark's got to do is just swim down to you. Yeah. So it's not a good movie. But that first one, that's
it's revolutionary. It was the first summer blockbuster of all time.
Yeah.
And then did we know 2 years later, a little indie film called Star Wars would explode.
Yeah. But also, I wonder if everything had worked, would Jaws have been the big thing it is? Because, we would have seen that shark in the opening scene with the girl.
If it worked.
Yeah.
With the teenager. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the fact that they had to get creative and work around the problems, I think that made it a better movie.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah, and so
because you don't see the shark for the first half of the movie.
Yeah, and then most of the time when the shark's there, you just know it's there because you see what it's doing.
The fin. Yeah,
and playing the movie, like it took me 2 or 3 viewings to realize that if you think the shark's there and don't hear the dun-dum, it's not there.
Dun-dum, dun-dum.
That you only hear that musical cue when the shark's there.
Yeah. Way to go, John Williams.
Yeah, and so, but it took me 2 or 3 times to put that together. That wait, I don't hear the music. The shark's not there. So yeah,
amazing, isn't it? It really is. Filmmaking has done some wonderful things in its past, for its present, for its potential future. By the way, Woody says, I'm reminded of the Chevy Chase Candygram sketches from SNL from
Oh,
back in the day.
the shark, when they open the door, the shark get them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's that. And then Pops goes on to say, go to Lake Michigan and see how smart that shark is. Laugh out loud. Telegram, Candygram, land shark.
Well, and there was a time where, well, I know they still make shark movies. There's 2 or 3 shark movies come out a year, but they were doing some really wonky ones on sci-fi. Like
Sharknado.
there's one where like a shark comes out of a swimming pool. There was like a ghost shark one where the shark comes up and gets this woman in the bathtub.
Anybody else know of these movies? Let us know in the chat if you've seen these horrible
sharks
pieces of...
yeah, they're awful. Most of them are awful. Yeah.
Sharknado, there's Space Shark. The movie I think is called, I don't know.
There are a few that have been good. I enjoyed The Shallows.
Oh, that to me, that is the pinnacle. Like, that is the best. Yeah. I mean, that is my favorite. I mean, nothing against Jaws, but The Shallows is my favorite shark movie. Like, there's that, and then you can take it kind of seriously, but it's also a bit funny in the one with Deep Blue Sea. From Rennie Harlan, who gave us Die Hard 2. Die Harder, which is a Christmas movie, by the way, in case you were wondering. Yes, Die Hard 2 is a Christmas movie. It is. So if you want to watch a holiday movie...
Because Christmas is part of the plot.
Yeah.
If it wasn't Christmas, it would be a different plot.
If you want to watch a good holiday movie, Bobby and I would suggest that you watch Die Hard, and then you watch Die Hard 2.
And if you're still feeling bored, Lethal Weapon.
Oh, the first one. Yeah.
Although Christmas is not central to the plot, so I don't know.
But it's hinted at. It's hinted at. Yeah. It is. Let's be perfectly. And I've seen the 4 Lethal Weapon movies. I actually like 1 and 2 are definitely the best because there's a connected story with what's his name, Riggs' wife, being killed, and they find out more about it in part 2, which makes part 2 for me my favorite of the Lethal Weapon series is Lethal Weapon 2. With all due respect, I don't know how you feel about it, but Lethal Weapon 2 is way better than Lethal Weapon 1.
It's more.
They find their footing in that one. They find their footing.
Right. Yeah. I think we start getting more of the humor.
Yeah, in the second one.
Second one.
I'm with you.
With these characters working. And I love
Murtaugh Riggs. Yeah.
Yeah. And the action is really gets a little more ramped up.
And it's Richard Donner. So
yeah.
I mean, the guy who gave us Superman, the guy who gave us Lethal Weapon, right? Goonies. The guy who gave us Goonies, which, by the way, that turns 45.
Yep.
Next year. Are you excited, Bobby? You excited about Goonies turning 45? Let me ask you this. Are you a Goonie? Do Goonies never say die?
Goonies never say die.
Well, let me ask you this. What's your favorite scene in the movie? What's your favorite scene?
God.
Oh. You got to pick one. You can't pick 50 of them. You got to pick one.
I'm trying to think. I do love it when they're in where they found the pirate ship in the cave and they're doing all this stuff.
And they're looking through the treasure.
They're looking through I do love that. I'm a big fan of that kind of adventure and discovery and chasing the
kind of like Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yes, I love that. Let's discover. Let's chase it down. Let's find it. And I just those kids together were just so fun and so likable. And
it's a fun movie.
And it's a very fun movie.
It is. And the soundtrack by Cyndi Lauper, the theme song, I think is really good because Cyndi Lauper was a big name for the time.
Yeah, and that's one. Like I said, my parents weren't really movie going.
Yeah, they didn't really take you to the movies. Yeah.
So most of a lot of those, like I've never seen Goonies in a theater, but that was one of those. And we would go to my grandmother's on Sunday, and my grandmother had cable, and so all the after we would have lunch or while they were making lunch, all the grandkids would lay in the living room and watch cable. And so there's a lot of movies that I became a fan of because they would be they were Sunday afternoon matinee fare on cable.
Yeah.
Goonies, Popeye, Remo Williams, things like that that was just stuff that got played. A lot of monster movies, the giant monster movies and whatnot got played on weekends.
Maybe Godzilla versus Kong or something.
Yeah, stuff like so as a kid, I just ate that stuff up,
You ate it up with a spoon. That's what you did. You ate it up with this. You ate it up with a spoon, brother.
It's one of those things that's hard to like, and you're younger than me, so you may not even this might not
just
even
just a bit younger than you.
But there's it's hard to explain in this day and age to people that weren't there the excitement that we would have over the Sunday night movie of the week. where it would come on and they would play like this intro to the Sunday night, with all this flashy lights, and usually there were stars, and it would go, the ABC Sunday night of the movie. And then
That's
that announcer guy would come on and it would go, tonight, step on board the USS Enterprise for, or whatever. And it was a magical thing for me on Sunday night to
Growing up,
sit
yeah.
down. And that's how I saw most of my movies. That's how I saw
The Star Trek
the
movies?
Star Trek movies. Now, I did see the
Wow.
Star Wars movies in theaters.
I was going to say, did your parents at least take you to see 1977's masterpiece, Star Wars?
We went. Now, we didn't go. Sorry, it had been out a little while at this point. I don't remember how long it had been out, but we went, and it was. I remember the day I saw Star Wars. It was just a big day altogether. We had gone out, and we went to the drive-in during the day, and it was a big flea market. And I remember we went to the flea market. That was where I bought my first Avengers comic.
Oh my gosh.
So I was introduced
awesome.
to the Avengers.
That's awesome.
It was a reprint book, like one of those Marvel Super Actions.
Sure.
And I still remember it. And I didn't know who any of these characters were, but what I found out later, it's not the usual Avengers. It was Hawkeye, the Vision, the Black Knight, Doctor Strange, and the Black Panther.
Black Panther. Wow.
And so I'm like, I don't know who any of these guys are, but they're awesome.
awesome.
So I was introduced to the Avengers that day. I already had read Spider-Man comics and some Hulk stuff, and then we went off. We did some other stuff. We had a nice lunch. We went back to the drive-in.
The drive-in.
It's still daylight. It's dusk.
Okay.
And they were showing The Jungle Book.
Oh, I love that movie. Yes,
so that is the first movie I saw on the big screen was The Jungle Book.
By the way, that's a great choice. That's a great choice.
So,
I love them. Yeah.
But we're sitting there. I remember watching it on the swings.
Because the swings.
They had a little playground there. So
they had a playground.
The kids are on the swings and all. We're watching it because they've got speakers so we can hear it.
That's great.
When it finished, it was dark. And then I got in the car. Actually, we had a minivan at the time. I got in and I laid in the middle console. And it was a double feature. And the second movie that I ever saw big was Star Wars.
That's
so I was introduced to the Avengers, The Jungle Book, and Star Wars
on the same
day.
On the same day. How many people can say that in American history that, well, son, when I was younger, I went to a magical place. It's called comic book play or whatever. I found this comic book at a flea market about Avengers, and I saw these two little indie films, just small indie films that just kind of blew up the world.
Yeah.
Disney's The Jungle Book, the animated feature film, and then 2 hours later, I'm going to see a film that no one's ever heard of. It's some kind of space movie with giant dogs and flying ships.
My parents didn't care for sci-fi, so I don't know what prompted it. I probably saw the commercials and begged, pleaded, cried, or whatever. But
and you went
because I was a sci-fi even as a kid. I grew up watching Star Wars or Star Trek reruns and
Buck Rogers
and
Lost
Flash
in
Gordon.
Space.
We had the Flash Gordon cartoons and Lost in Space reruns. And,
Danger, Will Robinson.
Oh, I love that stuff. Did you? That stuff. Oh yeah.
My goodness.
And I was an only child because my brother didn't come along till I was almost 9. And so I would watch these things.
And just
especially
absorb
during
it.
the summer when I'm at home.
Yeah, and you would just absorb it.
Yeah, I would watch them. And then when Mom invariably said, go outside, I would go out and that's what I would play because I was in the backyard by myself. And so it's like, if I had been watching Star Trek that day, it's like, oh, I'm a lieutenant on the Enterprise. Great. I'm landing party or what. And so those things fueled the imagination because it was just me in the yard.
Welcome to the Enterprise. Sorry, that's my best attempt at a Picard impression because Picard is #my captain. Yeah. But I know a lot of people have their favorite captains.
In that era, there was no Picard.
No, there was no Picard. It was strictly just Kirk. It was strictly
this is the 70s. Yeah, like they hadn't even had movies yet.
Yeah, Ryan wasn't around back then. So,
yeah, that was the kind of stuff whatever I watched. If I was watching The $6 Million Man, or if I was watching Batman, or hell, if I was watching Chips, I'd hop on the bicycle,
and pretend that you were riding down the highway giving people traffic tickets. By the way, did you watch Bionic Woman?
I did. Yes.
Did you ever meet Lindsay Wagner?
I have met Lindsay Wagner.
How was she?
I met her very briefly. I was at Dragon Con.
Ooh, which is one of the biggest shows in the
Yeah.
world. It's one of the
She
biggest
and
shows.
Lee Majors were there. I did see them both. I've never met Lee Majors, but I did see them both.
How was
But I was
Lindsay?
talking with Joe Crow, who runs the American Sci-Fi Classics track.
Yes.
And we were talking. He says, "I gotta go do something. Come with me." And I was walking as I was talking with him, and she was doing panels for his track, so he was going up to make sure everything was okay for her panel. So while he's talking to her, he introduced us, and I got to say hello, and so that was the extent of it. But yeah, she was very nice, very sweet lady.
Good interaction. By the way, Pops chimes in and he says one of our Madness sponsors actually wrote a couple of Remo Williams books.
Hey, I wrote a Remo Williams book.
Did you?
Yes, just recently. I don't have a copy yet to show you, but the cover is out and about. But Bold Venture Press just did an anthology called Remo Williams the Destroyer, The Adventures Continue. And I wrote a story that's in that. And that's been out like 2 weeks. Yeah.
Oh, I got to look this up. You got to send me the link then. I got to see it. Yeah. Send me the, what was I going to say? Send me the link for that. Congratulations on that, by the way. And by the way, I'm not familiar with Reno Williams, so this is going to be new because, like I said, I'm a bit younger than our good friend Bobby here. No offense, but ageism is not a thing. By the way,
there was a movie in the 80s that's really good. I love the movie. It was just called the Remo Williams, The Adventures Begin.
Ooh.
And with Fred Ward playing Remo.
Oh, I know Fred Ward. He was in Tremors.
Yeah. Yes.
Tremors.
He played Remo. There's a great scene where there's a fight on the Statue of Liberty, which is being renovated at the time.
Good Lord.
Yeah, I just put the link in your private.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you. Yes.
But yeah, but anyway, I love the character, and I've read some of the books. Actually, I have a couple within arm's reach. Some of the old ones.
There you are.
Called The Destroyer. Very pulpy.
Oh, there they are.
Very pulpy. Very
pulpy. Yeah.
Yeah, very actiony. A bit more adult in some ways. Very violent. Remo and Chun had no problem killing people as violently as they could. But it's good. The movie is fun. The movie has Fred Ward. Joel Grey plays Chun, which did cause some things because you got a white guy playing the Korean guy. But and it's got Kate Mulgrew.
Hey, I know her.
Pre-Star Trek Voyager Kate Mulgrew.
I know her.
Yes. So I'm really good. It's a fun, but it's one of those things too. That movie was a staple on like TBS and TNT in the 90s.
We know drama.
Yes.
Remember TNT? We know drama. You remember that?
Yeah.
Remember that little lineup they used to do called Prime Time in the Daytime?
I watched a lot of shows on TNT back in the
Law and Order. Law and Order was a big one.
Yeah. Well, that's where I discovered Leverage, The Closer.
Yes.
Things like that. Oh my, Rizzoli and Isles was really good.
Great crime dramas there.
Yeah.
Or dramedies.
Yeah, there was a time there when TNT and USA were doing some great crime shows.
Burn Notice,
and
Suits,
and Suits,
Graceland, which is criminally underrated, by the way, Bobby.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen Graceland, you need to sit your keister down and stream that thing. By the way, it is streaming on Disney Plus. Hashtag not sponsor of the show. But if they want to be, give us a call. By the way, Woody
there was
says,
great stuff there.
Yeah, Woody says, I was in college when the original Star Wars first came out. I didn't really want to go, but my girlfriend insisted on us going. Well, hey, man, must have paid off.
Are you a fan now?
Yeah, that's a good Woody. Are you a fan now? Can you answer that in the chat? I don't know if you can or not. But by the way, Pops chimes in. He says, I met Major Kira last year, Nana Visitor, if I'm not mistaken. She is still looking
wonderful,
gorgeous, riding like Ponch and John.
That's right. Only when you're on your bicycle, you have to make the siren noises yourself.
Yeah. And then he says, let me know when that book that you spoke about Remo Williams is. I just put the link in the comments section down below, so it is there. And then
you can get it from
you.
Yeah, you can get it from
networking / promoting is kind of what this network is all about. So there you go.
Yeah, it is on Amazon. You can also buy it directly from Bold Venture Press, which is the publisher. There's an ebook, a paperback, and a hardcover available.
Oh, okay.
But it was a dream for me. This is the same publisher that did the Zorro anthologies that I read.
Yes.
And so Rich, the editor and publisher, asked me, do you like Remo Williams? And I'm, oh, absolutely. And he's like, well, good, because here's what I need. And so it was great fun. I went and I dug out some of my old Remo Williams novels and read them. I bought a whole bunch of new ones because
Oh, did you?
I can write those off as research.
You write those off.
So I read a lot, and came up with a story and put it. It was big fun. You get those kind of like similar to writing Zorro or the Green Hornet, characters I grew up with.
Mm-hmm.
Getting to write an adventure with them was just so cool. And so, yeah, I had a blast with it. So, like I said, I don't even have my comp copy hasn't even arrived. It's that new.
Well, Woody
But,
says he enjoys Tremors, I'm assuming. And then Pops goes on to say RJ wrote a Remo/Batman crossover.
Oh, very nice.
That took place. By the way, he also goes on to say, did you know that Chewin also trained the Bat?
I did not know that.
More fun facts. Once again, this is the new edition of FreeWheeling Friday. I'm your host, Ryan Vanaco Channel. I'm joined by our great colleague known as indie author and movie/TV historian, because he knows way too much for his own good, Bobby Nash, which you can find on BobbyNash.com.
Font of useless knowledge.
Thank you. Yes. And if you have any questions for us regarding pop culture or some of the things we've discussed during the course of this show, let us know in the comments or the chat. Don't forget to like and share this with everyone you know. And if you're joining us live or on a replay, thank you so much for doing so. Goodness gracious. And then Woody says, oh, yeah, I love Star Wars. I still remember the first spaceship just coming in from the back, of the theater right over our heads. I knew this was going to be fun.
Never seen anything like it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Star Destroyer just, coming right in. And, it's a shame, too, because I was born long after, sorry to tell everybody this and age everybody up a few years, but I was born long after the OG trilogy had already debuted in theaters and came out on Laserdisc and home video cassette. Yeah, I just said it, folks. Video cassette, okay? I know what a video cassette is. It's a giant brick that you slide into a machine, and then you hit a magical button known as play, and then you just fast forward through the previews, okay? Yeah. That's what a VHS tape was.
I was fortunate to see all the original 3 Star Wars in theaters. I had cousins who were fans, and so they took me to Empire and Return of the Jedi. So I did see all of them in theaters, which is cool, because that was for some people my age too. I mean, that's like a religious pilgrimage to go see a Star Wars movie.
Is it?
And it was a big deal. But and also, to me, for the longest time after that, because before we had VCRs and VHS tapes,
those giant bricks,
for a time there, the only time I ever got to see Star Wars was on Christmas Day, because TNT, our friends at TNT, or USA,
We Know Drama,
they would
USA Network.
They would do the marathon of all three Star Wars movies.
All three.
Back when we could count them on one hand.
Now we need multiple hands.
Yes,
sorry.
That aired on Christmas Day. So to me, Christmas, even though they're not Christmas movies, Christmas means Star Wars to me.
So that means it's the gift that keeps on giving the whole year, and it's better than getting a subscription to the Jelly of the Month Club, like our good friend Clark Griswold got.
Yes.
Yeah, remember our friend Clark Griswold in Christmas Vacation? He unfortunately didn't get a bonus that year, but then his boss, kind of changed his mind at the end there, and he said, "You know what, Carl, take what you had last year and add 20%." And then he just passes out on the floor. By the way, Pop says Chewin also kicked Robin's behind in that story. Or whatever was going on. He says, I was 14 when the original Star Wars set came about. I stood in line 30 times just to see that one film, Bobby.
I've probably seen it that many over the years, but
have you?
Yeah, but like I said, my parents weren't moviegoers, so we went the one time, and
that was kind of the end of it.
And my parents weren't big sci-fi people.
But you
I think my dad might have liked it a little, but they were not they didn't care about Star Trek movies or, there was very little that they didn't care about aliens or predators or any of that stuff. So, so a lot of my favorite movies, there's a lot of my favorite movies I've never seen in the theater. Like the first Star Trek movie I saw in the theater was 5,
That one never happened.
Yeah. The first,
It never happened.
The first Indiana Jones I saw in the theater was 3. The first Alien
Which
I
is
saw was 3.
Which is a great. Not discounting Indiana 3, but Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade is a great film.
Oh, absolutely! I love that movie.
I love that.
But
yeah.
But a lot of mine were like that. It's like I didn't see.
Yeah, you saw the later installments before you got to the original.
Now there's a few of those because in the last decade, there's a lot of places that play older movies. So I have
they
seen Raiders.
replay them. Mm-hmm.
I have seen Raiders. I have seen Alien. I have seen Jaws. I have seen Wrath of Khan.
Oh, you have?
Theater. I have seen Die Hard in a theater.
Oh, you've seen Die Hard in a theater?
Yes.
Wow. I wish I could have seen Die Hard in a theater.
The first one I saw in the theater was 2. So,
which was Die Hard 2, Die Harder.
A few years ago, they re-released it, and I went with some friends, and I got to see Die Hard in the theater for the first time.
Now, do you believe in the urban legend that it is not Christmas until Hans Gruber falls from the 32nd floor of Nakatomi Plaza?
There's a reason they have an advent calendar with that on it.
Oh, really? There's an advent calendar for that?
Yes, and it's got like a little Hans that you can it drops a floor for each day.
Really?
Yes.
Does anyone know where I can find a copy of this? Do we know where we can find? Is this on Amazon or something?
Probably, but
I have a link.
Where it's just like a little Hans, and every day you just move it down one floor.
If someone has a link for this, please let us know in the chat or the comments of this show, or you can DM me on Facebook, or Bobby and I can DM it to, or Bobby, if you know about it, you can DM it to me. It's fine. We did put the link for that book regarding Remo Williams in the comments here. So if anyone wants to purchase a copy of that, you're more than welcome to do so. Speaking of which, let's talk about Bobby a little bit, because we talked about movies. We talked about a little bit about TV. We talked about how he wishes that that he had the power. But he does have the thunder. He may not have, I have the power, but he does have the thunder.
Yeah, bring the thunder.
Bring the thunder. Yeah, thunderstruck. Sorry, that's an AC/DC song, which is more related to Iron Man than anything else. Well, that and obviously the actual theme song, Iron Man by Black Sabbath, is the Iron Man theme song. So let's not kid ourselves, right? Without Black Sabbath.
There's one of those plastic Iron Man masks in here somewhere.
Somewhere.
Oh, there it is, way over there. Okay.
You see it way over yonder in the other corner of what is known as Bobby Nash's office.
Yes.
Which
I'm not a big toy collector, but I do have a few. Like if I see something that's just really cool, I'll get it. Or like I don't know if you can see them here. Like I got a Zorro Funko.
Yes, I see them.
Or like the Green Hornet and Kata, because I've written them.
Oh, I see that.
So,
I've seen Green Hornet. I see Zorro.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll do stuff like that. Or I got the Green Hornet, the Black. Because I wrote those, so I figured I'll get those.
If I'm involved in a property, I'm going to buy something that marks the time that I was involved. I'm going to put it on my shelf.
Yeah, but also there's like 2 or 3 TARDISes around here somewhere.
There's one behind you.
Yeah, there's a Stay Puft Marshmallow Man off to the side.
Which that just turned 40. So, which means, Bobby, that's a big Twinkie.
Yes.
So, it's a big Twinkie there, Bobby.
So I've got all that. I've got a Deep Space Nine
DS9
model right over here. And so just, a few Millennium Falcons and just things that I think are cool, I'll buy, but I don't collect. Like, I got to have all, except for Jaws. I got to get all those. But yeah,
it's kind of like that old commercial, collect them all, as they used to tell us when we were children. But for someone who's,
I forgot about the TARDIS behind me.
Yeah, it's right behind you.
Normally it doesn't sit there. I did a podcast about Doctor Who the other day, so I put it back there for that, and I forgot to take it down.
It's okay. If I'm going to have something for a show, I need a visual prop.
Yeah. I right here, I had the Jaws poster because I did something the other night.
Oh, I see it.
Talking about movies. So I covered up the book covers with a Jaws poster that's now back over in its corner.
Good Lord, man. For those of you who are just joining us, this is FreeWheeling Friday with Bobby Nash and myself. I'm Ryan of Anacore Channel. Do not forget to like and share this with everyone you know. If you have any questions for the two of us, specifically Bobby Nash, because he's the man of the hour and the man with all the power, let us see what I did there. There's a little bit of a rhyme there. Let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat. Do not forget to like and share it. And if you're joining us live or on a replay, thank you for doing so. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with the gentleman known as Bobby Nash, so Bobby Nash, tell us about yourself. Who are you? Just tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you?
Well, I'm a writer. I write comic books, novels, short stories. I've done some. I also write some audio dramas. I've done a few film scripts. I also do art. I do a little acting on the side. Sorry, I saw a question in the comment there. What does the Dante's. That's a series I write called. The first book is Dante's 10th. The second book is Dante's Showdown, and the third book that just came out is Dante's Reckoning. And I'm currently writing Dante's Rebirth, which is it's a horror western series that I write for Valhalla Books. So, but I write all kinds of stuff. I do a lot of work for hire, in addition to stuff that I create myself with my own characters, like Evil Ways Evil Ways or the Snow and this side, the Snow and Sheriff Meyer series. But I do a lot of media tie-in stuff, like I mentioned. We mentioned Zorro and Remo Williams, things like that. So I do a lot of that kind of stuff. I also, like I said, I draw. I do a lot of bookmarks and door hangers that I sell at conventions and through my website, and then I act a little here and there.
So basically, Bobby Nash is an indie writer who just happens to do everything that I can't, and he does it better because he is the cream that rises to the top. Oh yeah,
I do enjoy being creative. Yes.
Yes, and there is no one that does it better than Bobby Nash. Nobody does it better. Anyway, sorry, that's my poor attempt at a Macho Man Randy Savage impression. I hope I did a good job for you, Macho Man. I don't know.
About all I can do is, oh yeah.
Yeah, well, Whitefire Comics says hello to everybody. Hello, Whitefire Comics. So everything's well in your neck of the woods. Pop says, nice. I have a character named Dante Sinferno.
Nice.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes, those play on words.
And congratulations on all those titles. Yeah, because you mentioned a few of them. I actually have something I'd like to share with you, and for those of you who are watching or listening to this right now, this is a bit of a catalog of some of the things that Bobby Nash has done over the years. So for someone who's unfamiliar with some of these titles, tell us a little bit about these.
Sure. Snow is I tell people it's my love letter to like cop and PI fiction and TV shows from the 70s and 80s. You'll feel it'll feel like in the vein of like the Rockford Files or Magnum PI. They're very action character heavy.
Burn Notice, maybe.
Burn Notice is a very good example. Yeah, the plot is not always as important as the characters and what the characters are doing to the plot. So sometimes you can have very simple plots because it's all about the characters primarily. So we've been doing a lot of those. I release them as novellas and then collect every 3. So the cover you see there at the top corner, that's books 1, 2, and 3 collected in a hardcover. So we release them as novellas. There's 7 novellas in the Snow series that I wrote. The Snow Shorts, which is the second one, we did 3 novellas worth in one collection. That is stories written by me and other writers with Snow characters. And so it's a total, there's three books. So there's 3 stories in each one. So there's 9 stories by me and 6 other writers. Cause I wrote 1 for each book. So when it's collected, I did 3 of them.
It's only fair. You're the boss. So you can write as much as you want.
Well, I figured, since I write the main series, I should be in each one at least. That way, if people are fans of the series, they'll pick it up because I did write one, and then they can discover the other writers' stories as well, and then hopefully follow them onto other stuff they've written. So that was a fun experiment, letting other people write my characters, which can be terrifying because you just don't know what you're going to get. I mean, I kind of stacked the deck. I went to writers I knew personally.
Yeah,
that helped to but then there's that fear of there's 2 fears. One is what if they're not good. The worst fear was what if they write my characters better than I do. Which those were the thoughts swimming in my head. Murder was an anthology. I did a short story about a murder. It's a bunch of murder short stories. The Dante's books, as I mentioned earlier, there's 3 of them. I originally wrote Dante's 10th. I wrote a short story for another anthology called The Devil's Due, where the premise of the anthology was deals with the devil always come with a price. And they don't have to be demon devils. And some of the stories are human monster devil, human devils. But I wrote this story about set in the Old West in this boom town where the people who discovered the gold mine there made a deal with the devil to do that, or with a demon to do that. and it's time to pay up, and there are people trying to stop it. So I wrote this short story. The book came out, the anthology came out. The publisher calls me up one day and goes, "So what happens next?" And I was like,
I don't know.
I don't know. You asked for a short story. I wrote a short story. I haven't,
Well-
you know." He goes,
well-
"No." He's like, "Dude, this is a series. I need more."
Yeah,
So-
in the words of our good friend Corleone, just when I thought I was out, they
Mhm.
pull me back in.
Yeah. So I wrote. So Dante's Tent, the short story is in that first one, and then I wrote 2 more short stories that sets up. So there's 3 stories that take place in Dante.
Mm-hmm.
Dante's Showdown is a full length,
Oh, it is a
novella.
full length. Okay.
Yes, it's just one story that deals with a part, and then Dante's Reckoning is the follow up to what happens in Showdown.
Ooh.
And
okay.
then so book 3 that's out now, that wraps up the first arc.
Mhm.
Dante's Rebirth, which I'm writing now to come out next year, will be kind of like a new arc. This story's done. We're going to start a new
story.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's because I'd kind of written myself into a bit of a corner with the short story, because I kind of wrapped a lot of stuff up in the short story, and so I had to kind of Plus, I had never really intended to do more than one thing, so some of the things about the town I didn't really plan. I was just like, "Oh, there's this," and so now I had to make them make sense, and so. But it's fun. But I'm doing book 4 now.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We're also talking about doing an anthology for next year.
Are you
So
kidding?
so I've got to write a Bible for that, and they're going to have other authors come in and do some Dante stories. So,
Right. First it was Snow. Now it's going to be Dante.
Yeah. Well, but this time I'm not doing it. The publisher's doing it, so I'm good.
Okay. I'm good. Yeah.
Yeah. The In the Wind and Such a Night are part of the Sheriff Myers series. Sheriff Myers started as a secondary character in Evil Ways and appeared in Deadly Games. And finally, after years of whispering in my ear that he wants his own story, In the Wind came to me, and I realized that's a Sheriff Myers story. And now Sheriff Myers has 3 novellas of his own. They're also collected. And then I will be starting on 4 probably in another couple of months. So
Okay.
yes, what I do is, as I write these, I release them a chapter a week on my Patreon.
Which, wink, wink,
One.
check out the link in the description to find out more information about the Patreon account there.
Yeah, and so I just finished up one called Nowhere to Run, which is a story that features a Deputy U.S. Marshal, William Teague, who has appeared in a couple of my books. So he gets his own story. It just finished, so starting in January, we're going to do Snow Island, which is the next Snow book. And then when Snow Island is done, then I'll do Sweet Nothings, which is the next Sheriff Meyer book. So that keeps them going. Doing a chapter a week also helps me kind of,
keep up the pace.
Going.
Keep up the pace. Yeah. Consistency, I think, is the key, right?
Yeah.
Consistency is the key.
And I have a few other books that are done. Deadly Deals, the sequel to Deadly Games, is done. Well, I'm in the rewrites edits stage now.
The editing stage.
Yeah, and then so that'll come out in 2025. So we'll know where to run. I had written a couple of novellas for another publisher that there's some internal things, and so those reverted to me, and they haven't come out yet. So I'm going to release those this year. This will be an exclusive for you because they haven't been announced anywhere. But there's going to be a Secret Agent X novel, which is Secret Agent X is an old pulp character.
Oh, okay.
And I had mentioned stupidly, because this is how I get in trouble.
This is how you get back into a corner.
I say things out loud sometimes, and people listen. And I mentioned I was talking with the editor at this publisher, and they were talking about taking some old pulp characters and reinventing them for the 21st century.
Oh my!
And I went, well, Secret Agent X his origin can be in the 21st century without changing anything, because blah 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 happened. And he goes, "Yeah, prove it." It's like, damn it! Now I gotta go write something.
Now you gotta go write another story.
And then the other one is called, and this is the first time I've said this out loud. It's called Captain Science in Oz. Captain Science is an old comic book character from the 50s, 40s, 40s or 50s.
One of the
Public
two.
domain character, yeah. He was a scientist who got some alien tech which increased his brain power, and he and his team sidekicks go out and solve crimes using science, and they fight
Really?
aliens. They fought aliens and robots and that kind of stuff, as you do.
Wow.
And so, same publisher, they were putting together this anthology of short stories, and they had a list of characters, and they also had a list of like public domain locations. And I went, "Ooh, Captain Science in Oz," and he goes, "Okay, that's a novel, not a short story." And I'm like, "Damn it!" So I've written that. So those two will come out in 2025 as well. So yes, there's a lot. There's a lot on deck. There's a Green Hornet novel coming.
Really?
It's done. Yes, it's done at the publisher. There's a lot of Domino Lady material coming.
You announced something regarding Domino Lady and a few other heroes who are going to be teaming up for some crazy adventure. I believe tell us about that. What's it called?
Yeah, it's a book called Paladins. It features several pulp characters. It's Domino Lady and Nellie Kwai, who is Judgment's sidekick. Kygor, who is he's like the blonde version of Tarzan.
Yeah.
The old pulp character, him and his wife are in it.
Oh, really?
Ravenwood, the stepson of Mystery, is in it. And there's a new character called the Night Marcher, which is a Moonstone character. And Moonstone contacted me, and they had, I guess, another writer had started on the idea. It was the company idea, and I guess another writer had started but had to bow out. So they had there was like a couple of paragraphs of notes or whatever, and so they gave it to me and to look at. And can you do this? And because they already kind of had a loose, this is going to happen, but I had to build a story around what they gave me. And then Domino Lady got added at that point because she was not in the original version, but he's like, "Well, you write Domino Lady, so put her in there too." And I'm like, "Okay." So,
which she ended up being in the front of the cover. So,
yes.
Which,
so,
by the way, she looks awesome and
beautiful cover.
And beautiful. Yeah.
And there's another
who put the
one
cover
too.
together? Who was that? Who put the cover together?
I knew you were going to ask that. I don't remember who he said the artist was. I'd have to look it up.
Well, they did a tremendous job. Let's just give credit where credit's due.
There's two of them. I have seen the other one. They haven't released yet, and it looks gorgeous as well.
Oh, does it?
Yes, it does. And
you think you can get me a poster of that Paladins one with Domino Lady on the front and send it over to me? Because I was going to say Domino Lady, and I've read your story centering around the character of Domino. I think it was called Domino Lady Lucky Shot. I think it was.
Money Shot.
Money Shot. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry about that. Money Shot from Moonstone, if I'm not mistaken. That was a great book. I really enjoyed it. That was my introduction to the character because I never heard of this character. So when I read the book, I'm like, oh, this is interesting. She works as a bit of a PI in Hollywood. She masquerades as an everyday person, but then she has her masked alter ego. And I'm like, okay, this is very Batgirl, like Batwoman.
Yeah, she's very Batman-ish. Yeah.
Yes, but in a good way. I mean this in a good way. I'm not saying that imitation is the highest form of flattery.
Yeah.
Because if it weren't for Zorro, let's be perfectly honest. Without Zorro, there would be no Batman.
And she predates Batman too. She was created before Batman was.
That's what I'm saying. Like Zorro inspired Batman.
Yeah. But how I pitch this to people at conventions, it's like, imagine if the femme fatale from your favorite, detective noir movie or novel was the hero, was the detective. That's her. She was created in 1936.
36.
She only appeared in 6 stories.
That's it?
That's it.
She was only in less than half a dozen stories?
And they were short stories. They weren't novels. They were short stories because she was in the magazines with multiple. She only appeared on the cover twice.
Oh, really?
But they were considered in the 30s. She was in the adult pulp mags, the spicy pulps.
The spicy
because she had sex. It's if you read the original 6 now, and they're out there, you can find reprints of them.
Oh, reprints. Okay.
Yeah, of the original 6 stories. They're pretty tame. You know how in like old movies, the characters would go in for the clinch and the camera
would pan up.
Candlers. There's
Fireworks,
a literary equivalent. of
Yeah.
that. There's a lot of innuendo.
Like the Hitchcock film To Catch a Thief. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect
So
example.
there's a lot of innuendo in those stories. Not out writing that they're having sex, just a lot of innuendo. So that's what we do at Moonstone. We're doing innuendo, a lot of innuendo. And so that helps. And so that's why the political thriller novel I wrote is called Money Shot, because that's innuendo. I wanted to call it Strange Bedfellows. I was overruled.
I was
Because
unfortunately.
because it is a political thriller, so I thought
Mhm.
politics makes Strange Bedfellow, but but that's what they approached. Joe, the publisher, goes, "Hey, do you want to write a Domino Lady political thriller?" And I was like, "Absolutely," because he had been noticing what I had done in the couple of stories that
Oh, sure.
predated that.
That happened before that. Yeah.
Right. In the original stories in the 30s, there was one recurring character who was a big game hunter
Hmm.
who became a movie star. And in one of the stories, he mentions, and he's not a good guy. And he mentions in one of the original stories that he's going to run for governor of California, because this is all those stories are based around Hollywood. And so I just play, even though he, spoiler alert, dies in the last story, I set the early stories I wrote between those two so I could use him. And so I keep mentioning that he's running for office. So when she runs into him in previous stories, he's campaigning. And so Joe picked up on that and said, "Hey, let's tie that story up and show the political thriller."
Mhm.
And so, because she knows he's a bad guy, she has thrown her support into his opponent, who she ends up having a relationship with. And
Yes.
and then when someone
Great book.
tries to kill him,
She gets a little upset.
She gets a little upset and has to go and
take
be
matters
Domino
into her
Lady.
own hands. Yeah.
Yes. So
Great
I had a
story.
blast with it, and I still get to write. I've got a 5-part Domino Lady teaming up with other characters comic.
Really?
In process. I've got a 4-issue mini series where she fights the Valkyrie from Airboy.
Oh, the Valkyrie. Yeah,
because
that's
Valkyrie was a bad guy before she meets Airboy. So
Yeah.
I've got, this story takes place before she meets Airboy, and
Gee
so I've got
whiz, man.
and then
Bobby
there's
Nash.
and
How
then
do you make time
Paladins.
for all this?
I don't, I have
Honestly,
no life.
I really don't know. I mean, I've known you for a while now, but I will say I don't know how you make. By the way, Flip City Magazine's in the building. She says, "Hello, everyone. Hey,
Hello.
all. What's up, Flip City Magazine? Good to see you. Hope everything's well in your neck of the woods." Once again, this is FreeWheeling Friday, hosted by the new and improved host and producer of this show, because I am the cream that rises to the top. Oh yeah, Ryan of Anti Quote Channel.
We're gonna have to get you some Slim Jims.
We will.
That's what you need. You need the prop to go with the voice.
Snap into the Slim Jims. Oh yeah, exactly. I remember the commercials, Bobby. Trust me. And Bobby Nash is here. He's an indie writer who just happens to do everything and write billions of stories a year, and spend 40 hours a day writing this. I don't know how he does it and puts up with it, let alone do it. But if you have any questions for this young man, even though he's not as young as he once was, because he's got the gray hair in the background, he's got the thick beard going on.
The white beard, yes.
The Santa Claus beard going on. Let us know if you have any questions for him, or both of us. Let us know in the comments of the chat. Don't forget to like and share this video with every single one of your closest friends. And if you're watching this live or on the replay, thank you so much. Once again, Bobby boy, I don't know how you do this, man. But here's another thing I want to ask you about, because we didn't get a chance to dive into this a moment ago. And by the way, congratulations on all these upcoming projects.
Thank you.
That you have coming up. I'm looking forward to it, because I saw the cover for Paladins the other day. I think it looks really fascinating, bit of an Avengers type team up. So I'm looking forward to seeing where that goes. But there's 2 more stories here that I want to know the elevator pitch on. So I believe it's Gary Phillips' Hollis P.I. and then the Lost Adventures of Captain Hawkland. Tell us about those 2.
Hollis P.I. was created by Gary Phillips, who writes novels. He works in TV. He's written comics. He wrote one of the Snow Shorts. And Gary, Hollis P.I. originally was released as a comic at DC Comics as part of the Vertigo line. It was called Angel Town, and it's a very hard, noirish cop detective story that takes place in a very rough part of LA, which is where Gary's from. Gary writes very hard hitting crime drama very well. He is really good at that. And so he created this character. So Hollis, they were going to do some anthologies of short stories. I believe at the time too, he was talking with production about a TV show version, which I don't think panned out. But this book was the first of two that they were putting out to kind of get the character back out there. And so Gary asked me if I'd like to. Gary and Tommy Hancock, who is the editor, asked me if I would like to do one. And I was like, absolutely. And so it was fun. So I was already a fan. I had read, the character previous. And so I'd known Gary for a few years at that point. And I don't normally write super dark stuff. My crime stuff can go dark, but it's very rarely super dark, So this was kind of a chance for me to write a little harder crime story. And my story is about a young actress who comes out to LA and, as so many happened, doesn't end well. And she does not get that big break. She does not become a movie star, and she ends up working in the adult film industry. And then she ends up going into prostitution, and then she ends up dead.
Right.
And Hollis is Nate Hollis is hired by her family to find out what happened to her. And so it was a wonderful detective character and a lot of fun to write. And they did 2 anthologies. I'm in the first one, which is here. Also, our friend Jeffrey Hayes did that cover, which I think might have been the first time Jeffrey and I were on a project together. I believe.
No kidding.
This. Yeah. And so, it was just a ton of fun. Gary also wrote for, this will be funny because of the title, but there was a TV show on FX called Snowfalls, which was about drugs. And Gary was one of the writers on it.
No
Gary
kidding.
was also the editor of my book, Snowfalls, the first snow book.
Oh my God.
And he wrote a snow short. So there's a lot of snow in there.
There's a lot of fresh snow being thrown in.
But Gary's fantastic. So if you like good hard hitting crime,
I like the cover. It looks like a movie poster.
Yeah. He's your guy. And like I said, that was the point too. I think they were really trying to sell that.
They're hyping it up.
Yeah.
They're getting things on the hype train, which is what you need to do in marketing.
Yeah. And then Captain Hawk, The Lost Adventures of Captain Hawkland.
Smuggler's Run.
That's Charles F. Millhouse's character. I've known Charles for a good number of years. Charles wrote a snow shorts as well. And we got to talking. Charles has Stormgate Press. He published a magazine called Pulp Reality.
Yes.
And he's been doing these Captain Hawkland novels. And Captain Hawkland is like a pulp era, 20s, 30s, 40s pilot character. And I was talking to Charles, and I was like, I've got Lance Starr, who is a pilot adventurer that living in this same era. And I suggested, why don't we team them up? And so we each took a crack at one. So I wrote a team up, and then he wrote a team up of them together. And so when he started putting together this collection, and he released them kind of like we did with the snow shorts, he released them individually as like 99-cent ebooks.
Oh yes.
So he brought like, I think there's 5 of us, 5 writers.
5.
And we each wrote one, and there's 2 volumes. I have a story in both volumes, and it's Captain Hawkland in adventures before the novel series begins. And so Charles has a nice timeline laid out of where he is in various years. And so I picked a year, wrote a story, invented a friend, that's in trouble and he has to help. And that story came out. And then when he came to do volume 2, I did the prequel to that story second. So when I was like, oh, well, we should show something with these 2 guys earlier. And so we went back about 10 years and had a story where they're younger and getting into trouble. So but fun characters. That if Indiana Jones was a pilot, that would be Lance Starr and Captain Hawkland. They're that kind of.
Yeah, just make sure there's no snakes in the plane. I hate snakes, Jacques. I hate them. Oh, come on. Show a little backbone, will you? By the way, Woody says, I am the cream that rises to the top. Oh, yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
And then Pop says, new host? Yes. Improved remains to be seen. Laugh out loud, Ryan. And then he says, I'm sure you will justify my faith in you, smiley face emoji. Thank you, Pops. Appreciate you, man. Thank you. See, Bobby Nash, the best indie writer in the business today, says that I'm doing a great job. He approves of what I'm doing, which means I am the cream that rises to the top, and I am the cream of the crop. And nobody does it better than Ryan the Quote. Just nobody. Nobody does it better. And nobody does indie writing better than Bobby Nash at bobbynash.com. Hashtag always promote your friends, which I encourage people to do whenever they're on a show. And what was it? Pops brought this up earlier in the chat, Bobby, that you and I saw. This is the show for networking and getting the word about other people's projects and their books and their writings, whatever else is going on in their lives, respectively. So another thing you mentioned that I want to address here with indie author Bobby Nash is that, and let me take a moment here to gather this for just one moment, because this is going to be hard to see with my virtual background. Sorry, you got to see some weird imagery behind you. But these are bookmarks that you, sir, you make yourself. Do you put these together? And if so, tell us about these bookmarks. So how did this all start for you? Because there's a number of these here that I have in my collection.
Yes. I love to draw. I wanted to be a comic book artist. That was my goal, was to be a comic book artist. And it turns out I'm not good enough to get hired to do comic books. So I started writing comic books to have stuff to draw. And I've told this story a lot, so I'll go through it quick. But a friend of mine suggested that if I focused on either the writing or the art, I'd probably get better at one of them. But I love to draw, but I don't get to draw very often. And I was in a Michael's, the store, the art supply store, and I was in Michael's, and I was just looking around because I get a lot of markers and stuff for book signings and whatnot. And as I was walking around, they had blank bookmarks, those that you held up, just blank.
Really? No kidding.
And I was like, well, that's cool. Maybe I can do something for, giveaways or patrons or whatever, just something. And so, yes, I play with color a lot, which I'm getting better at. Like the Boba Fett's a really good example of how you can like stack colors and get good depth. But anyway, so I figured I bought a pack, and there's 50 to a pack. And so while I was watching TV, I doodled out a few. And the first few were okay. And then I figured I would grow bored with it shortly. And like I said, they come 50 to a pack. I just opened the pack that will take me to 850.
Jeez.
So, and out of that, I've only thrown away one. There was one that just did not work, and I ripped it up and threw it away. So I am on my way to 850, and I'm just having fun with it. The hardest part is figuring out what characters to draw. But then if you notice at the top of them, there's a comment, and I usually try to have something that fits the character. Like that character that you look at there is from Field of Dreams.
Terrence Mann. Mann.
And so the quotes I try to make quotes that fit the character, but they're usually about reading or bookmark or what do you mean you're gonna stop here, or or something related to that character.
Or Boba Fett, he's no good to me, bookmarked.
Yes. So I try to do stuff like that and put it, and so it's just been fun. I've been doing it, and I didn't really plan on it becoming a thing. Yes, that one's another one I'm pretty happy with. Those are the door hangers. But I didn't expect it to become a thing, but then I took a photo of them and I put it on social media, and I said, hey, look what I did. And somebody goes, hey, are those for sale? Then it became a thing. But I'm having fun doing it. And then I added the door hangers. Same thing. I was in Michael's, and I was trying to come up with something new to put
of all places that Bobby walks into. It's called Michael's.
And so I know, right? And so they had door hangers. Well, I'll try that. And so I got to playing around with that, and the door hangers are fun. It's stuff I take, sell at conventions, or I sell them through my website too. But most of them tend to sell through at conventions. It's also a good get people to stop. Oh, that's cool, and so I do a lot of those, and yeah, so but they're fun. I enjoy it. It's fun. I do it. I sit at my desk here all day writing murder and mayhem and
writing books. Yeah,
yes,
writing
but
stories.
I'm writing. Yeah, I'm killing characters and creating crime and blowing stuff up. And
stuff up. Yeah, like Die Hard, like a Die Hard movie.
So in the evenings after I eat dinner, I'll sit and I'll watch TV.
You'll have TV on.
Not new stuff, but it's like I'll turn on something I've seen before.
Maybe The Mask of Zorro, for example.
Yeah, and it's just stuff it's in the background, and I don't have to watch it because I know it, and it becomes like background. And I have the lap desk, and I'll sit and I'll do 4 or 5 a night. I don't do them every night. There's some nights I just don't. I take a night off, but I do those. They're fun. I sometimes, like, if somebody wants one, I take requests sometimes. It's like, do you have this? And I was like, I don't, but I can draw that. As long as I can look it up and find reference, I can make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, this one here is just gorgeous. I mean, look at this.
There are certain characters that get a lot of redraws because they are popular. Optimus Prime is one of them. Jack Skellington, I think I've drawn 10 of those.
Oh, geez.
The Peanuts characters, Lucy and Snoopy in particular. Spider-Gwen, Spider-Man, and Batman.
I was going to say Spider-Man has to be popular because that's your favorite character of all time, isn't it? Is Spider-Man?
Yeah, but people are always picking those up. The Scooby-Doo characters, are fun. I think I've done all Scooby multiple times, all the main guys, but the Scooby villains are pretty popular. And so but it's also I'm trying to improve myself as an artist too, which is helping. So I'm learning stuff with the colors, how to stack colors and mix colors. I've been practicing with doing real life people or real life characters. One of my favorites, I did an 11 from Stranger Things on a door hanger for somebody.
Oh, no way.
I don't know how it turned out. It looks just like her. I don't know how I did it, but it worked.
It's magic, Bobby. Yeah. It's magic. Remember?
Yeah. The Muppets are fun. The Muppets are a bit of a challenge because that's where the playing with the color helps, because you don't want it to look like a flat color. Unless you're doing the Muppet Babies, because they were cartoons, so flat color works. But
do you remember that show?
I do. Yeah.
Muppet Babies. Come on.
I wouldn't have known it if it wasn't for my brother, because I had had aged above that. But he watched it, and I would watch him. I took care of him after school before my parents got home.
Okay.
And so while I'm doing my homework, he was watching that or stuff like that, and so I knew it from that. So I've seen them and all that, but I probably would have missed it if not for my brother. But finding those, playing, like if I'm drawing the adult Muppets, I don't, Kermit doesn't need to be flat. It needs to look like there's some felt or little splotches of just a lighter color and a darker color, and
right.
So I'm playing with a lot of that, learning the shading and
like Cookie Monster.
Yeah. There's when you do like Cookie Monster, especially on the door hangers, because they're wood and the ink really soaks. You kind of have to do it a little differently, and so you're using like 5 or 6 different colors of blue to make it look like it's not just one flat color, like it's actually the felt and So that's fun to play with and practice all that. And I do, I try to do some other characters. I've done like Homie the Clown from In Living Color is always a popular.
Have you done He-Man and the Masters of the Universe?
I have done He-Man. I have done Skeletor.
All right, I may ask you to make me a He-Man one, because I like that color. I have the power.
Cool, yeah, it's doable. And I've done Orko. Orko's easy. Skeletor's fun. I haven't done like Tila and Man at Arms or any of those.
She-Ra, maybe.
Yeah, I've drawn She-Ra before, but I don't think I've done put her on a bookmark.
You should put her on a bookmark. I think you would make
Yeah.
major money off of that. Just saying, as a
Yeah.
sales tactic.
Yeah. Well, and like I said,
there's a lot of 80s kids out there
Yeah.
that are grown up now that would really like, memories of the 80s, which you've
Mhm.
given me with some. I mean, granted, I was born at the tail end of it. No offense to those of you who are older than me, but I came to know about Optimus Prime through the Michael Bay movie. Now, I know a lot of people throw those under the bus, and for good reason, I get it. But the first Transformers movie from 2007 was my introduction to the original G1
Gotcha.
Transformers. And when I saw the movie, Bobby, in theaters, and when they arrive on Earth for the first time and you see them interacting with Shia LaBeouf and Megan, I Can't Act My Way Out of a Paper Bag Fox, I got to tell you, that was one of the best moments I've ever had in a theater.
Mhm.
Seeing those Transformers transform in front of our eyes with 2007 graphics for the time, and hearing Peter Cullen's legendary voice
Yes.
as Optimus Prime from the original G1 series that everyone in the 80s grew up on as children.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, man, and Peter Cullen's got a great voice, period. So, and I've had the pleasure of meeting Optimus Prime once. It was very quick, though. It was during the pro photo op session at the Comic-Con. So I didn't really get a chance to interact with him because those things are rush in and rush out, right? It's part of the business, right, Bobby? It's part of the business.
Assembly line, yeah.
But the next time I see him, I'm going to have him sign either this bookmark you got in front of me over here, or actually, I'll have him sign both the bookmark and I had a toy of his, but maybe I'll have him sign a print from a fan art that I have. But anyway, either way, whether it's your bookmark, Bobby, or this other thing I have over here, Peter Cullen is going to sign one of my Optimus Prime pieces of memorabilia because I love the character of Optimus Prime. I just do.
Yeah, I was there when the G1 cartoons started.
When they dropped, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because I remember that, and
Did you get the comic books? Did you get the books?
I did. Now, as much as I liked Transformers, I was more of a G.I. Joe guy.
Mm-hmm.
But I did enjoy the Transformers cartoon, and that Transformers animated movie looks gorgeous.
I still haven't seen it, which I know a lot of people say is black. A lot of people have said I've committed a crime against humanity by not watching Transformers.
I wouldn't go that far.
Well, they say it's blasphemy. I don't know.
It is a gorgeous movie. It looks fantastic. The story is dumber than a bag of rocks. Not really. The story gets.
I mean, do you want me to watch this or not? I mean,
let's face it. A lot of the stories in those are pretty simple.
Yeah, pretty simple stuff. Yeah,
but the animation is gorgeous. The
soundtrack by Queen, I think it was.
No,
or was it Queen? I'm sorry.
It wasn't Queen.
Wasn't Queen. I'm sorry.
I forget who did it, but yeah, You Got the Touch and all that is on there.
I forget who it was.
Yeah, it's it's gorgeous. They do replace some of the actors with other actor, I guess, because it's bigger names. Like
I heard Judd Nelson is in it.
Judd Nelson is in it. Leonard Nimoy does Galvatron.
Hey, there you go.
Which is Megatron becomes Galvatron.
Oh, thank you for answering that question.
And then when the show came back, because they did the movie between seasons.
Yeah, and then they killed off everyone.
But Leonard Nimoy didn't come back for the show. The guy that was doing Megatron just started doing Galvatron. But yeah, there was a lot of stuff there. There's some stuff with Optimus Prime that might make you cry.
Yeah.
Yes. By now,
where's the old spark?
Yeah.
Where's the spark?
It's a beautifully animated movie.
I'll have to look into it then.
It is absolutely beautiful
because they've re-released it so many times on DVD, Blu-ray, and even 4K.
Yeah.
So,
but I was a bigger G.I. Joe fan than Transformers. I enjoyed them both, but I was more of a Joe guy. I was very disappointed when the G.I. Joe animated movie did not make it to theaters. Ooh. And I was so disappointed year before last, I think, maybe in last year or year before last, it came to theaters for the first time for like one weekend.
And you missed it.
I was sick. That was when I had COVID and I couldn't.
You were under the weather. Yeah.
Yes. And they've never sent it back, put it back, but it's another one. The story is not
pretty simple.
And I love Buzz Dixon who wrote it. I know Buzz, but it's a simple story. It's a bonker story. I mean, it goes into like Lovecraft territory, and yeah, they're fighting like Lovecraftian creatures. And
does Sergeant Slaughter make an appearance in this?
Sergeant Slaughter is in it. Yes, big time. He is a big part. They also, like the Transformers movie, they introduce a lot of new characters. Don Johnson plays Lieutenant Falcon, that kind of thing. Yeah.
The Don Johnson?
Yes, Don Johnson.
You're talking
is
about what's his name? Or not?
Miami Vice.
Miami
Crockett.
Vice.
Crockett.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Crockett and Tubbs.
He
Yeah.
he plays Lieutenant Falcon, which is Duke's brother. It's a fun movie, and that opening introduction is there's a battle at the Statue of Liberty where Cobra on the 4th of July tries to blow up the Statue of Liberty.
Really?
And the G.I. Joe team shows up to stop them, and it's like a 3-4 minute long battle that
sounds like an epic
over
war sequence.
Yeah, and it's played under the not only the theme song, but there's a Cobra theme song, and so they're singing about Cobra, and Cobra's doing this, and who can stop them? And then it goes into the G.I. Joe theme, and while the theme's playing, it's just all the characters are fighting, and there's war and shooting, and it is one of the absolutely coolest animated things I have ever seen to this date. It is one of my favorite animated sequences in anything. If you can look it up, the intro to the G.I. Joe animated movie.
Yeah, it's on YouTube.
It's absolutely gorgeous.
I will have to look this up because I've seen a lot of G.I. Joe cosplayers and Cobra cosplayers at conventions because there's a charitable organization of Cobra that does, that's a cosplay organization that does things for charity. So like the Philadelphia Cobra membership or whatever. I can't remember the name of the chapters, but there are cosplay organizations that do things for charity, which includes G.I. Joe characters. So
because this is opening the movie, it's every character that's a member at that point. So every character gets a moment. So they're going through everybody.
Well, speaking of the characters of G.I. Joe, didn't you contribute, whether it's a story or your experiences collecting the toys, to one of Jim Beard's books or something like that?
I there was a convention here in Atlanta called it was called Joe Lanta, and we also have one called Toy Lanta. They're the same people, but it's toy conventions. And so I was invited down to do a panel called Toy Stories, and I told a story on that panel about my experiences because we were poor, so I didn't all my friends are like, yes, I had all the Joes. So when I played G.I. Joe, I just played with them. And I'm thinking I had 3 Joes, 3 Star Wars, 1 Cylon, so I mixed and matched. And I tell this story about how that kind of sparked the creativity of creating this whole scenario of how my 2 favorite toys were Destro and Boba Fett, and how they went on adventures. And so I tell this whole story. It gets recorded and ends up on the internet, and it's out there. And Jim Beard heard it, and he goes, I want that in this book. so I wrote that story for the book. And because those were my 2 favorite characters as a kid, and I didn't have them. They were long since gone. But as a result of that, a buddy of mine went out and found me replacements.
My dear Lord.
I have them here in my office.
And they're frozen in carbonite. Look at that.
And because these are the guys that kind of started a lot of my storytelling creativity, because I would make up. My premise was that Destro had enough of Cobra Commander's crap, and Boba Fett had enough of the Empire's crap. And so they teamed up and steal a shuttle, because I had a toy shuttle, the one with that folded up like this, and they stole a shuttle and went off to be bounty hunters on their own. And so that allowed me to take them, and they would land on planets, get into trouble, solve the problem, fly away at the end. And I would just come up with stories and put them in death traps and that kind of stuff. And so that was the first storytelling I ever really did. And so so they're nice. They sit here in my office. They're a nice little reminder over here next to my animated Batman figure.
You and your action figure.
Yeah, it's like every once in a while I find one. It's like, oh, that's cool. That should come in. That'll go in here.
I mean, seriously, in the words of our good friend Joker, where does he get those wonderful toys? I mean, honestly, and I hope you who are watching or listening to this are enjoying this debut episode with the new host, yours truly, Ryan of Anti-Quote Channel. This is Freewheeling Friday. Do not forget to like and share this with everyone you know. If you have any questions for Bobby or myself, let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat. If this is hitting on the nostalgia buttons for you, which I know it is, let us know those thoughts in the comments, because we have talked about anything and everything from the early part of the 80s to the late 70s to the mid 80s to the late 80s, some of the early. We've gone so much around the gamut here, but I want to introduce you to something that Bobby has spoken about in previous shows that he has been on the Anti-Quote Channel. Maybe he's spoken about it on other people's talk shows, or what do you call it, panels at conventions that Bobby likes to attend each and every single year, which includes Dragon Con, which is one of the biggest shows in the world, because it's in Hotlanta during the hottest point of the year in like 50 hotels in a 10-block radius, which is insane that any convention is willing to put people through that much torture of walking and going through escalators and elevators and taking their shoes off and putting their shoes back on and having to put on another pair of shoes and all this stuff. But we talked about this earlier in the show, and I want to bring this up now because you kind of mentioned something about putting Destro and Boba Fett together and going on these adventures. But before we talk about one of Bobby's favorite, if not his favorite all-time character, we got this to kind of like get the creative juices flowing and what these ideas or maybe some of these stories involving certain characters may turn into. Take a look.
In a war, you give everything you have. That makes you an Avenger.
How about that? I promise a stress-free environment. No surprises.
Ow!
Is everything a joke to you? Funny things are. Hulk. Smash.
How do we do this?
As a team. We're not finished yet.
Guys, I'm bringing the party to you.
So for those of you who were in the theater on May the 4th in 2012, or the weekend for that matter, and saw this epic film that blew up the box office, tore up the records, made people want to get interested in reading comics for the very first time, drove audiences into comic book stores that otherwise never would have entered in the first place, and introduced us, to those of you who are unfamiliar with these comic book characters who have been around for decades and decades and decades, to something known as the Avengers. Well, this is one of the best movies I've ever seen in a theater, in my personal opinion. It's also one of the best comic book movies that's ever been made, in my opinion. And if someone's going to make a top 10 MCU list, which, by the way, Anti-Quote Channel is going to present to you our favorite top 10 favorite MCU films of all time, we're going to do that as a special show next year on our channel. So you may want to subscribe to Anti-Quote Channel right now. I'm just saying. Because the MCU top 10 list is coming in 2025. And I'm assuming that Bobby Nash is going to want to contribute to this as much as anyone else. So, Bobby, I'm just curious. You mentioned this crazy hero known as the Webhead Menace, known as Spider-Man. If Marvel came to you right now and said, Bobby Nash, we like what you're doing in the indie circuit, but we want to have you come over to Marvel and write a story featuring this character. He's just some character who's only been around for like 65, 70 years. His name is Spider-Man. I don't know if you're familiar with him or anything like that, but if you're going to write a Spider-Man story, how would you do it? What's the story?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I don't have a pre-made one. And also, whenever, I mean, it's fun to play pie in the sky, but whenever you're hired to do characters that are either company owned or licensed or whatever, they invariably come with a do's and don't list. So a lot of the ideas I may think, oh, that would be cool, would be on the don't list. But I love the idea of, I liked like Peter being like a real guy, having real problems outside of being Spider-Man. And the last few times I've read Spidey, that just seems to be gone. So I kind of like to see Spidey stick to being a ground level hero and dealing with those type of things. The first Spider-Mans I ever read were that way. They were, Spidey just fighting his regular villains, or, the cartoon. You know, I grew up watching the '60s cartoon, which started out that way and then kind of it veered off into bat crazy territory after a while. But I love the character Spider-Man, and I would love to attempt it. Like I said, I don't come with ready-made stories just because they'll drive me crazy that I never get to write them. But yeah, might even be interesting to create some new villains for him to deal with. I think that would be fun because when you're writing a Dr. Octopus story, there've been so many. What can I bring to a Dr. Octopus story to make it interesting and do something that hasn't been done 20 times before, plot wise or character wise? So it would be stuff like that. It would be an exploration of who Spider-Man is and what kind of adventures, what direction does the publisher want to go? That's always good to know. So yeah, that would be kind of how I'd start.
Okay.
There would be a lot of action though. I love action. I would love to, it would be some Spidey kicking butt.
Just like that trailer just displayed for us.
Mm-hmm.
Minus the web-headed menace, as J. Jonah Jameson likes to say. He's a menace in the entire city. Get me pictures of Spider-Man. Anyway, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's
but
my,
like I said,
yeah.
it's Spidey was what got me into comics.
Exactly.
It was the cartoon first. The reruns of the '60s cartoon would play in the afternoons after I got home from school, and I would watch them, and I was fascinated. And then we were in a store. My mom and I were in a department store, and they used to do the 6-packs or the 3-packs. Where they would put 3 comics and we found one, and there's 2 Spider-Man comics. I'm like, oh my God, they make Spider-Man comics. Mom, can I? Mom, please, mom. I probably made all kinds of bargains to get these. And then to my surprise, opened it up, and the comic in the middle that you couldn't see was also a Spider-Man comic. Plus, there were 3 consecutive issues. It was issue 192, 193, and 194. I had never read comics before. I didn't realize that it was an ongoing type story. And so I dove in and I devoured these. Issue 194 ends on a cliffhanger that I didn't get to resolution for another like 15 years. But it was great, and they were fun. And I remember also being surprised and then making sure I hid it from my mother because Spider-Man cussed. He said, "Damn you, Jameson," at the end of it. And I was like, if my mom sees this, yes, my mom would have like ripped him up and said, "No more."
Yeah, there would have been problems.
Yes, my mother was not a comic book fan. She hated that I read them. She was not a fan of me trying to write and draw them. She didn't really kind of come to understand it until people started paying me to write them. Then suddenly she's like, "Wait, this is a job. You have a job.
Make money off of this. That's
thing,
great."
Yeah, it's a mom.
Yeah.
But yeah, but Spidey was my gateway.
That's your gateway drug.
I
Spider-Man.
fell in love with. I devoured, and as a kid, not only did I have those reruns of the '60s, we had the Spider-Man cartoon from Hanna-Barbera. We had the Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends,
which I remember watching reruns of when I was a youngling.
Yeah. And so, and that show was great because that introduced me to a lot of other characters. And I knew Captain America because we used to see the reruns of the Marvel, like Captain America, Hulk, Iron Man with those kooky theme songs,
Kooky theme song. But then you got Iceman in the Amazing Friends series.
Yeah.
You get Firestar, who I think was created exclusively for that show.
Yep.
Which
I
didn't know that, by the way. That was fascinating to learn.
And so, but also, I think it was the first. I'd seen the Green Goblin on the '60s show, but there were other like Doctor Strange is in an episode. The X-Men show up. I had no idea.
I think Electro is in Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. So yeah.
So there were a lot of those type of characters I had never heard of. And then when I was 12, I think I was 12. When I was 12, we moved, and we moved to the same city where I live now. But where I was, I didn't have any other people that read comics around me. I had a cousin that stayed with us one summer, and he read comics, and I read some of his. That's where I read some Avengers and stuff like that. But I didn't really know other guys my age that were into comics. So we move, and school has already started. Like, we're 2 weeks into the seventh grade, 6 or so, whatever, it doesn't matter. We moved. And so 2 weeks in, so I'm 2 weeks behind. And so I'm in the new school, and the teacher puts me with this guy and says, shadow him until we get you all sorted. And at lunch, he introduced me to other friends of his, and then they all proceeded to pull out stacks of comics and would read them at lunch and then pass them off to each other. And I got to read suddenly characters I had never read before. And so my comic love really erupted once I met these guys. And the bonus is these guys were making their own comics too, which made me go, ooh, that'll be fun. So I started making my own comics, and we were, doing all stuff together. And then that's really where this was born. And the fact that I was able to stick with it is also kind of cool, because there was no guarantee that when you're 12 years old you get to do.
You don't know.
Yeah, the thing you wanted to do when you were 12, who knew at 53 I would be doing it for a living. So,
well, I think it's fair to say that everyone here in this audience would say you don't look a day over 25. By the way, Woody said earlier, I love your bookmarks.
Thank
They're
you.
fantastic. And then Pop says, it's Linus. Oh my God.
Well, let me say, if you want to just look at them at bobbynash.com, there is an art tab. And I do take photos, and you can see all of the bookmarks and
all of them,
door hangers. Plus, I also do envelope art. Like if somebody buys a book from my store, I draw on the envelope. I do sketches at conventions, and I post those photos. So if you just want to look at them, guilt free, no me trying to sell you anything. Just if you want to go look at them, they're all there.
They're all there. And by the way, Madness Comic Network goes on to say, you'll have to open the next pack to get to 850. This pack will only get you to 849.
Oh, no, not really, because even though I threw one away, I still drew it. And I was done and went, nope, this is crap. So I did draw the one I threw away.
All right, well, that's one way to go about it. Let's see. Woody goes on to say, I don't draw at a bat desk, but I read in a bat room. So that's one way to go about life. Well, since one of the first things you saw when you were a kid is the Avengers comic. If you were hired to write an Avengers storyline, what would you do with what would you do with that one?
I love the Avengers. I love the Avengers going on a mission, and there's different types of. You can have the Avengers saving the world, and it's a big thing where everybody knows what's going on. Or you can have these stories where the Avengers go and they have this big mission, but it's not a world-ending event, or the world doesn't know about it. Like the Avengers movie we saw the trailer for there. They're fighting in downtown New York. That's cool and all. But I also love the opening to the second Avengers movie where they're just fighting these guys in the woods and dealing with it. But I love the idea, that very first issue that I ever read. I remember being very impressed by it because he opened it up in page 1, and I didn't know who these characters were at the time. But page 1 is a full page splash with Surtur from Thor and a big thing that says, some say the earth will end in fire, in fiery letters. You turn the page and there's Ymir, the ice guy from Thor, going, some say the world will end in ice. And the Avengers are stuck in a battle between these two guys. And they're trying to stop it so it doesn't destroy the world. And I love that kind of big, epic, type of story. So those would be fun to write for the Avengers, I think.
Good stuff. Good. Marvel, if you're listening or watching this, which we know you are because you're everywhere and Big Brother's always watching us, please hire this young man, Bobby Nash, to write some of your stories because he's doing a great job in the indie writer circuit. But man, you put him on a Marvel storyline, he will just knock your socks off.
And I'm a longtime Marvel reader, so I do love I have characters that would just be these would be wonderful characters to write. I think I've got at least one good Thor in me. I've got one good FF in me. I've got
yeah, a little something for everybody.
Yeah, you get ideas all the time, and you just kind of tuck them into a little box in the back of your head, because it is I talked about this on an interview the other night where it's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, when you have time to think these things up, that says, do you ever get like where a publisher or somebody calls you and says, I need a pitch now? And that does happen, where it's like, hey, I need, and it's this character, or the Snow book. I'll give you the good example, the Snow book. That was one. A buddy of mine emailed me and said, hey, I'm doing some stuff with this new publisher, and they're looking for some action thriller novellas. And I mentioned you to him. Is it okay if we call you? He would, and you could talk to him about doing some stuff. And I'm like, sure. So I'm thinking I'll have time to put something together. I no more hit send, my phone rings. And I pick it up and we're talking. And so we were chatting about what the publisher's goals and plans, blah, 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 all that stuff. And then the publisher goes, okay, what you got? It's like, great. I've had like 3 minutes to think about this. And so Snow happened because I had 3 different ideas tucked away in the back of my head that were just little germs of an idea. And I took 3 of them and I slammed them together. And I pitched the story with these 3 ideas together. And then I pulled the name Snow out of thin air. I don't know where it came from. It just kind of came out of nowhere. And I pitched that and he goes, great. I love it. Let's do it. So it is weird how sometimes those type of moments can mean more sometimes than had I have had a week or 2 to put a pitch together. I might not have come up with something like Snow. Like it would have been different.
Mm.
Or like sometimes when you write, you'll write something that you've put weeks and months, sometimes years into. Like I wrote this novel and I have poured every bit of my blood, sweat, tears, heart, soul into this book. The book comes out, nobody cares. This story I hacked out over the weekend for the money is the best thing you've ever written. So a lot of it's once it leaves me, it belongs to the audience, and then at that point they determine, and by the way, when I say hacked out for the money, I don't do anything I don't care about. But some things are quicker than others. Yes, no, if I early in my career I agreed to do a couple things that I just didn't care about, and I didn't enjoy the experience. So I make it a point to I don't agree to do anything if it's not something I care about or feel comfortable with, or I have turned down stuff that paid fairly well just because I'm not the guy for that. Because we don't want to nobody wants to put out something that's not good. I don't think any of us ever angles for I want this to be awful. So I do sometimes go, yeah, because I turned down one book that turned out to be the publisher's best-selling book. And 20 years later, that book still sells like hotcakes. But
really?
I also know I'm not the guy. I don't think the book would have worked as well had I written the story, because I just don't write what they were doing. And so, which is an important, it's a good skill to learn what you're not good at and what you are good at. But yeah, you just never know. You never know what idea is going to, I thought, sorry, I'm backwards. I thought Evil Ways, I thought I would be like that was going to like make me $1 million, and I would be doing Evil Ways sequels every year for the rest of my life. And I've only done 2. I like them. They're very well, regarded by the people that have read them. Over the years, the 20-some odd years since it came out, it's probably my best-selling book over that span of period. But it didn't set the world on fire as I hoped it would.
Right.
And so, whereas, like I said, this, Snow came out of an idea I threw together quickly. And it's probably the best-selling. God damn it! It's probably the best-selling. I know, right? It's you'd think I'd know. I know it's on this wall, but
And I
it's
have that
become
poster, and I have that as a shirt, brought to you by
yeah.
Classifier Graphics on tpublic.com.
Yes. But it's probably turned out to be the most of the things that I created myself, the characters, that's probably the most well known.
Most well known. Okay.
Yeah, so it's a weird thing, but I came together so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So
Kind of like MacGyver.
maybe that's where inspiration lays. I
Yeah.
don't know. It's really weird. But I've worked on some stuff that I thought this will be the thing that's people are going to love this, and they don't. And then other stuff, it's like, oh, this sort of maybe people will like this, and they love it. And I'm like, what, why? And you don't always know. And a lot of it, it's not that one's bad or that either was bad. It's just what connected with the audience. And if I knew the answer to how to gauge that properly, I'd probably sell a lot better. But you just don't know, and so you have to kind of do I try to do stuff I enjoy. I write stuff I like. You know that makes it fun too. I've worked on things, like I said, in the past that I was not as big a fan of, but I didn't know how to say no, and I was miserable while I was doing it, not because it was a bad property or whatever. It's just I wasn't the right guy for it. So I learned a lot doing from that. So yeah, I try to make it a point to work on stuff I enjoy.
Well, that's completely fair. And
the Marvel stuff would fit right in that, because I love that stuff. But
I was gonna say it would, wouldn't it?
It is, like I said, when the Remo Williams offer came, it was like, oh yeah, this is one of those characters that's been in my head. Oh my God, wouldn't it be awesome to write this guy? And I've got a list of them. I mean, I'll never get through most of the list. I was going to say, I never thought I'd get to write any of them. So the fact that I've gotten to write the Green Hornet or Zorro,
Domino Lady,
yeah. Well, but Domino Lady's cool. But most people, when I started, had never heard of Domino Lady.
Well, because of you, now I know who she is.
Yeah, there's a lot of people. Yeah, and right now I think there's 4 different publishers that are doing Domino Lady stuff.
Oh, okay. Well, that part I didn't know, but hey, more power to her, because that means more stories and exposure is going to come out.
I think I've written more Domino Lady than anybody.
Really?
To this point, I think so. I could be wrong, but I think so.
What is your best-selling book and/or series? Is it Snow is selling the most books, or is there one book in particular that's selling more than anything else?
Well, if you look at over time, Evil Ways, probably.
Fair enough.
In terms of like when it came out, it just hit and sold a lot. The At the Earth's Core book that we did for Dark Horse that Jamie Chase and I adapted was probably my best-selling comic book.
Okay.
Although I want to say now the Crimes and Times may have surpassed that. But for a while, yeah, definitely the At the Earth's Core. And Snow does pretty well. The first, especially the Snow Falls, the first one, does pretty well. But I think Sheriff Myers actually sells a little better. Yeah.
So Longmire's beating my boy Michael Weston over there. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it seems to be that, yeah. I mean, Snow's been out longer, so that kind of helps. But yeah, I tend to have more people that gravitate to those, and then maybe Snow after.
It's all good, because at the end of the day, everybody wins.
Yeah, and this, like Snow, Sheriff Myers, the Evil Ways books, the Deadly Games books, those all live, Suicide Bomb and all that. Those all live in the same universe.
Yeah, the same cinematic. Well, in this case, book universe.
Yeah, same literary universe. Because I do have character. I do have characters that cross over. Usually secondary characters, or like Somerville, the city they live in. Tom Myers is the sheriff of Somerville. Snow lives in Somerville. Evil Ways took place in Somerville. So there's a lot of those ties. Or like I mentioned earlier, I just wrote one with a U.S. Marshal. The U.S. Marshal was a secondary character in 2 other books. So he shows up in Evil Intent, and he shows up in the Wind. And then now he's got his own story. So some of the stories kind of do that, where again, it's that love letter to those old TV shows. These are backdoor pilots sometimes, spinoffs. And so I haven't crossed over the main guys other than Harold, Agent Palmer and Sheriff Myers, because they were both in Evil Ways together. And in Standing on the Shadows, they do have a phone conversation. But I haven't had a story where I crossed over the main guys yet. I might at some point. I just don't have the story, so I gotta wait till they tell me they're ready.
Take their time. Take their time. Take your time. If you put an Avengers type story together with all these characters in Summersville because the devil went down in Georgia, sign me up, because I will be there to buy that copy of that hardcover or even paperback for that matter. So
yeah, because it's one of those things. Yeah, it's when you wait for the characters, because
it has to be the right time too.
Yeah.
Because timing is everything in this business.
Yeah, because the fourth Sheriff Myers book is also an unofficial sequel in a way to Evil Ways, because two of the characters who were being chased by the killer in Evil Ways, who survive, show up again in the fourth Sheriff Myers book with a new problem that they're dealing with. And
That's a teaser.
Yeah, so they've got, but they know the sheriff because the sheriff saved their life in Evil Ways. So they know the sheriff, but so that there's another problem that he's helping them with. And so you don't have to have read Evil Ways to read it, but it is fun to bring in old characters. And for people that have read them all, ooh, it's a nice little Easter egg. These guys are back. But if you've not read it, I give you what you need.
Mm-hmm.
So like you can read Sheriff Myers books with never having read Evil Ways. That kind of stuff. I mean, hopefully you'll like them enough to go, ooh, let me go get those. But that's not always the case. And so I try to make them accessible. That way, if
someone comes in later or whatever, they can catch up on this. They can understand what's going on within the story and what's going on with the dialogue and the characters. So I can put in the interactions.
Yeah, and if you like that one and you never want to read another thing I've done, you've got a whole story.
That's it's very true. It's always good to have a full story in one book.
Yeah. Well, and then I tease. I mean, like with the Snow books, I tease. The story wraps up. Then there's an epilogue that leads into the next book. So
I mean, at the
end,
end
of want to come back.
Yeah, I was going to say at the end of book 6 of Snow, and rolling into what's going to happen next with a certain character that shall not be named, because I don't want to give away spoilers for those of you who are unfamiliar with this series as of yet. But let me tell you something: the way book 6 ends and sets up what's going to potentially happen between Abraham Snow and another character, I'm like, ooh, this is
non-spoil. But in the end of book 3, when I was writing the thing to lead into book 4, and I killed off the main villain.
Yeah, I was like, "Oh, where are we going with this?
Right,
what's going to happen?"
I had plans for that character in books 4, 5, and 6. I had plans, because 6 was going to be the confrontation. And I'm trying to say this as non-spoilery as possible. So this character we find dead, which turned out to be a wonderful thing, because readers suddenly don't know what to expect. They don't know what's coming next, because this is a surprise.
Because I didn't know.
Surprised me too.
I didn't know.
But what it did was it allowed another character who was not intended to be as big a character,
in the background, to come to the forefront.
Stepped into that role, became the main villain, and was a better villain
than
my original.
Yeah.
But that was all trusting the characters. It was not a conscious plan. And so, but when it happened, I just rolled with it and we made it work. And those happy accidents, when they happen, oh my God, it's one of the greatest feelings in the world, because it's, people laugh when I say this, but my characters are smarter than I am.
Well, I mean, it knocked me for a loop. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the series, when you sit down and actually read it, the Snow series, particularly by Bobby Nash, you're going to find out almost, I wouldn't say super quickly, but as you go along within each chapter of each story, there's layers being pulled in, and then everything builds upon the other, and it just comes together in book 6. When you get to book 6, I don't want to give it away, but when I read that for the first time, and I think I texted you like less than an hour after I was done reading. I was like, Bobby, what the heck did you like? What is this? I can't believe you did it. And then this is what happens to this person. And then Snow has to confront this with this other person. And I'm like, dude, I don't know what you're doing, but I'm loving every single minute of it, because the way this thing ends at the very end, I'm like, please give me the next story with these two characters now.
Because I tend to go at it with like, I'm not very good at, like, you know how some writers write this really intense outline. I can't do that. My plots are looser. But if I've tried writing outlines, but if I write an outline, when it comes time to write the book, I'm less interested, because I feel like I've already told that story and I'm ready to move on. So I go into it. I have plots. I mean, it's not like I go, I don't know what I'm going to do. I have plots, and you know, I call them signposters, like boom, 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 boom. These things have to happen. And then I get with Snow and I go, okay, Snow, I need you to go there. How are we going to go? And then I let Snow dictate how we get there. And that opens, and I do that with the other characters too, but that allows for those moments that I didn't plan up front that come out as we're doing something. And that's how a certain character dies at the end of book 3. That's how this other character becomes a more interesting character. This is, you know, because those were plans I had up front, but as I'm going, I realized that character's doing something I didn't know what they were doing. And instead of ignoring it and making them just do what I want, let's play with that. And if it doesn't work, you can always take it out. But I will sometimes, let's play with that and see where it goes. And sometimes it takes you to amazingly wonderful storytelling beats that you wouldn't have had otherwise. So I love it when that happens. But yeah, it's not, it's weird. It's, you know, but yeah, non-creative people look at me like I'm crazy when I say stuff like that, but it's true. It's, you know, my characters do things that I never thought of. I'll give you a quick example. I wrote this one story years ago, short story for an anthology. It was based on an old radio show called Night Beat. And the concept of the radio show was this reporter would walk the streets of Chicago at night, and whatever he would get into would be what he would write about. And so I wrote this simple story, simple plot. He's out walking, he stops, he grabs some dinner, goes into this nightclub, and a former girlfriend of his is there singing. And he talks to her after her performance, and they chat a bit, and we find that they had been separated for years. She had married a guy who was a mobster. She has a kid that's with her, and he finds out that the husband is trying to kill her, and she has run with their child, and he is after her. And so the reporter, I'm going to protect you. I'm going to help you get out of town. Simple plot. We're going through all this stuff. Someone does take some shots at them. There's some other stuff happens. We get to the end, near the end of the short story, and our hero meets the mobster villain for the first time. And they've squared off against each other. And the reporter's like, I know what you did, and I'm not going to let you hurt her. And the dialogue that then comes out of the mobster's mouth tells me that he is not the bad guy. He has no idea what the hero is talking about. He is not the villain. And then this other character speaks up and goes, I'm the villain, and says something. And I'm like, holy crap. That's a great twist. I love it. It works. Let's go. I write it. I write the twist. And I'm like, okay, I need to go back and set some things up earlier in the story so the twist doesn't come out of nowhere, because I want to play fair with the readers. And if there's a clue that points to this, it needs to be there for the reader. So I go back and I reread the story. And to my surprise, those clues are already there. They were coming out in the dialogue, but consciously I didn't notice it. Subconsciously I obviously did, but consciously I did not realize that I already knew who the villain was, and I was setting this other guy up for something else. And it turned out to be a much more powerful story than it would have been had I gone with just my original idea.
Well,
So those things happen from time to time.
I was going to say, that's something else. So here's a rapid fire for you. 3 pieces of advice for aspiring writers.
Have fun with what you're writing.
Mm-hmm.
Set goals. Attainable. Set attainable goals.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on what, and with that, determine what your path is. Not everybody wants to write for a career. Some people want to write for a hobby. Determine what your path is and then set attainable goals to get there. Goal number 1 cannot be become a New York Times bestselling author. That's a goal 100. Sometimes finishing the book should be goal 1, but set goals and keep attainable goals and then celebrate them. And then, write what you enjoy, write what you like. Don't try to follow trends, because say vampires are hot and you decide, I'm going to write a vampire novel. I hate vampires, but I'm going to write a vampire novel. What happens if that vampire novel becomes popular and you find yourself stuck writing vampire novels the rest of your career and you absolutely hate them? You're going to come to hate writing. You're going to come to hate your career. So write what you enjoy and then find an audience for it.
Giddy up, man. And here's another one for you. You're going to love this. Line from a movie, TV series, or comic book that you use in your everyday vernacular.
Okay, I actually have this one. It's like I use the "he tasks me" line from Wrath of Khan a lot, and it's not always he. Sometimes it's like "it tasks me," or But yeah, that one I use frequently.
Giddy up, man. That's good. That's good stuff. Live long and prosper, as one might say. Well, Bobby Nash, I want to take this opportunity to say thank you for being our first guest on this new iteration of FreeWheeling Friday on the Madness Comic Network.
Although technically it's FreeWheeling Saturday now.
Yeah, don't remind me. I got another show to do tomorrow in less than 11 hours from now, so that's not a whole lot of break time, buddy. You put us into OT, and I'm way past my bedtime. I'm just kidding. I don't have a bedtime, but I am tired. But that's not a slight against anybody who's watching or listening to this right now. But anyway, Bobby Nash.
Yeah, I did another podcast before this one tonight, so this is like hour number 4 podcasting tonight.
Bobby Nash is a very much in-demand person, as well as a writer and a guest. If you want to know more about Bobby Nash, or Bobby, if someone wants to know more about you, buy some of your books, maybe even get a commissioned bookmark or a door hanger, because those pieces of art are just fantastic. Where can people follow you on social media?
Social media, I am at author Bobby Nash on Facebook. I am at Bobby Nash on the thing that used to be called Twitter, whatever they're calling it this week. I am Bobby Nash Writes on Instagram and Threads and Blue Sky. They all have the same. Bobby Nash, patreon.com/Bobby Nash is my Patreon page. There is free content there. There's also the content there as little as $1 a month. We mentioned the serialized novels earlier. $1 a month get you a chapter a week of that and other stuff. So a lot of good stuff there. I have an Amazon author page. If you just search Bobby Nash, Bobby Nash Evil Way, something like that, you'll find it. And BobbyNash.com is the website, and ben-books.com is my publishing company. So yeah, that's me.
Fantastic. Thank you, Bobby Nash, for being my first guest on me taking over this ship and being the El Capitan of the whole thing. By the way, people have chimed in and say, I really enjoy these stories you share with us tonight, Bobby. Thanks for the show, guys. Pop says, me too, Ryan. Laugh out loud. Great show. That means he's tired too. Cosmic Grandpa says, great show, guys. Madness says, this was my 5th show today. The madness is where it happens, brother. Oh, goodness gracious. That's a lot of shows, man. That's a lot of shows. Well, Bobby,
the trick is keeping your voice. Because like, I know I come home from like conventions and I'm hoarse,
we've all been there.
Yeah, because after 3, especially the 3 days, but like Dragon Con, I'm there for 5 days. I come home from Dragon Con, I can't speak a lick.
I don't know.
Which, a lot of people that know me are like, oh, thank God he's quiet.
But we appreciate you being here nonetheless. Cosmic Grandpa says, excellent job hosting and an excellent guest. There you go. That's what we want to hear. Bobby, I'm going to talk to you here if you can still hang on for another minute or two.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm
yeah.
honored to be the first guest. It was a lot of fun. We'll definitely have to do it again.
Yes, on this new iteration of FreeWheeling Friday, you were the first for me. So congratulations, you're the man. You get a medal. Your check is in the mail. Maybe you'll send me a bookmark. I don't know. Who knows what's going to happen in the near future? Maybe a door hanger that says you're going to need a bigger hanger. Which is a funny
freewheeling door hanger.
A freewheeling door hanger. Yeah, that's what we should do with Ric Flair on it. I am the freewheeling, freewheeling hanger. You and I will swap ideas. But Bobby, I'm going to talk to you in another minute here. So don't have another spot of tea, and we'll talk shop in a minute. Oh goodness gracious. Goodness gracious. What else is? Oh, Madness Comic Network says, go watch some of our old CromCon episodes. 3 days, 60 different guests in 1 weekend a month. Laugh out loud. That's pretty insane, dude. That's really insane. I think you're out of your mind, quite frankly. But then again, this is the MCN, Madness Comic Network. So what else is new, honestly? But I do want to take this opportunity to say thank you so much for joining us, whether you're watching us, whether you're listening to this, whether you're watching the replay or listening to the replay. Thank you for being a part of the first episode for my debut as the new host of FreeWheeling Friday. I appreciate you being here. My name is Ryan of And I Quote Channel. You can follow me personally at RyanRPM5 on all forms of social media. Follow us across all forms of social media simply at And I Quote Channel, which you can see right here on this name tag. See, I think Bobby Nash, I'm pointing in the right direction here. There it is. So follow us there. And I Quote is on Saturdays, 12 p.m. EST. Movie watch-alongs are on Fridays at 7 p.m. EST. And then the first Friday of each month, we do the Meaning of Fandom, where we gather people together and they share with us a particular character or fandom means something special to them and why. That's on the first Friday of each month at 7 p.m. EST. So make sure you check out the And I Quote channel and its content over there. Thank you so much for doing this. This has been a great time. I've enjoyed catching up with a good friend of mine, Bobby Nash. He's my favorite indie writer of the moment. If you want to support these writers, please go out and do it. It's the holiday season. 'Tis the season to be jolly and spread that holiday cheer for all those to hear. So see what I did there? A bit of a use of a movie quote that may or may not have been around for like 15, maybe 20 years by now. I don't know, something like that. But don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, ring the bell to be notified of when the videos go up or they go live on the Madness Comic Network, as well as And I Quote channel. And remember, life is better when celebrating your favorite things in pop culture or fandom, in some cases, when you're here with family and or friends. And once again, this has been FreeWheeling Friday, which means
click on the tube and feel the vibe. Every show you crave right here live. Heroes and villains clash in the night. Madness Comic Network sets it right. Scroll through the list, find what you need. Epic battles and fast-paced speed. From capes to cosmic space delight. Tune in and watch your favorites ignite. On Facebook, share the thrill so grand. On X, the buzz across the land. Madness Comic Network all around. In every episode, joy is found. Uploads, they never end. Superheroes and their friends. Catch every twist and every turn. Madness Comic, you will yearn. Stay up to date with every twist. Madness Comic, don't miss a gist. From laughter to tears, every mood. Madness Comic sets the groove. Click that button and subscribe. Catch the wave and ride the tide. Join the fun, join the craze. Madness Comic brightens days. Hey! uploads, they never end. Superheroes and their friends catch every twist and every turn. Madness comic, you will yearn. Stay up to date with every twist. Madness comic, don't miss a gist. From laughter to tears, every mood. Madness comic sets the groove. Click that button and subscribe. Catch the wave and ride the tide. Join the fun, join the craze. Madness comic brightens days. Hey!
All right, I'm a little tired, a little wired, and I think I deserve a little appreciation.
Click on the tube and feel the vibe. Every show you crave right here live. Heroes and villains clash in the night. Madness Comic Network sets it right. Scroll through the list, find what you need. Epic battles and fast-paced speed. From capes to cosmic space delight. Tune in and watch your favorites ignite. On Facebook, share the thrill so grand. On X, the buzz across the land. Madness Comic Network all around. In every episode, joy is found. Uploads, they never end. Superheroes and their friends catch every twist and every turn. Madness Comic, you will yearn. Stay up to date with every twist. Madness Comic, don't miss a gist. From laughter to tears, every mood. Madness Comic sets the groove. Click that button and subscribe. Catch the wave and ride the tide. Join the fun, join the craze. Madness Comic brightens days. Hey! New uploads, they never end. Superheroes and their friends catch every twist and every turn. Madness Comic, you will yearn. Stay up to date with every twist. Madness Comic, don't miss a gist. From laughter to tears, every mood. Madness Comic sets the groove. Click that button and